Those are cookies made with purple potatoes. Ube. Okay, everybody here? You want me to wait? Want me to wait till you finish chewing? Or? All right. Okay, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission to order. I'd like to welcome all of you here today. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Alvord?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Karapetkoff?
Here.
Commissioner Locke?
Here.
And Chair LePage.
Here. Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any, first items are public appearances. Under the Brown Act, comments for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to subject matter under the jurisdiction of this review body. Hateful, violent, or threatening speech is impermissible in public comment, and as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act, they will be muted. Having said that, at this time I'd like to invite anybody from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission on any matters of municipal concern which are not on our agenda tonight. So I don't see anybody in the coming forward. Oh, we have one hand up. Is it Will Ray? You want to unmute yourself?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, I attended the regular city council meeting, I think it was last week, regarding asking if we could review whether the Mills Act could be open for applications again. And I think it was mentioned that that would be brought up to the Planning Commission. So I wanted to check in and see if that had been discussed or if any progress had been made or when to expect sort of an update on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't make it. What was this question?
I believe he's asking about the
Mills
Mills Act.
Act. Well, at this time, we public comments, we don't have any discussion about it. So we don't really answer questions. It's just if you want to make a comment about anything, you can do that, but we don't answer questions.
All right, I'd like to submit a comment then that I would like to request that the Planning Commission open the Mills Act for applications for this year or for next year so that homeowners can apply for a Mills Act contract with the city.
Okay, well, I'd recommend that you get in touch with the planning department regarding that. Okay, is that all your comments, Mr. Ray?
Sorry, say again?
That's all your comments?
Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else, so I'll close the public comments. We'll move on to announcements. Are there any announcements from staff? No announcements? Okay. Any announcements from the public or commissioners? All right. Okay, that moves us to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask items to be considered individually for purposes of discussion or answering questions. We have 4 items tonight. On the consent agenda, we have the monthly activity report for April. We have the minutes from our regular meeting in April, and we also have a design study, which is for a final design study and coastal development permit for a DS 221-22331 Collins. And I believe that Commissioner Alburn has a question or a comment regarding that. So at this time, I'm going to let her give the floor so she can make her comment.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for DS 22-331 Collins, I had a question for staff, for Mr. Court. In the staff report under finished details, number 2, you discuss some of the proposed exterior materials, and you talk about a swap that was made related to some of our concerns about fire safety. Could you just speak to that a little bit?
Certainly. So the project location is located within the very high fire hazard severity zone. It's in our current very high fire hazard severity zone, not the current discussion regarding the proposed map amendments. Even with the proposed map amendments, it still will be within the very high fire hazard severity zone. When projects are located within that area, there are certain building requirements that need to be adhered to, specifically with siding requirements, the construction materials and methods. So for the proposed siding, the applicant was proposing a natural cedar siding, which did not meet the building code requirements for that, the state fire marshal. Flip this over. So this is the proposed material by the applicant. It's a natural cedar, part of the Heritage Collection. This was the finish, the corral. However, it's just a natural stained cedar. However, the same manufacturer does provide for a ignition-resistant exterior cedar. So it is a cedar finish. This is not the proposed material, but it's a similar product by a different manufacturer. I can just pass this around. It is a true wood finish. That is not a composite. It's a pressure-treated cedar product, effectively, in the exact same corral finish. That does meet the state fire marshal's requirements. So that's effectively what staff was pointing out in the staff report, that while this one product does not meet the state fire marshal's requirements, there is a comparable material that does.
And so then that is a requirement that you've placed upon the applicant for the final study?
So it's not a condition of approval. There is a condition of approval in the resolution. It's condition number 2 that says the applicant must adhere to all building and fire codes. So that would take care of that. If the applicant can demonstrate that this product does meet those requirements, that would be sufficient. However, this would also be an acceptable alternative, and staff points that out in the staff report, that either material is fine. It's just needs to comply with building and fire codes.
Great, thank you.
So that's an engineered siding? Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes. It is a cedar siding. However, it is effectively pressure treated and simulates a true wood finish. It fits together just like any other siding. I can scroll down and the assembly is identical between the two. They're both cedar. It's just.
But it's engineered, so it's cross-laminated material like that.
Yeah.
Sample, yeah.
That's my understanding.
Sometimes when they do that too, they compress the material so it becomes denser.
Yeah, so
which can affect the combustibility.
Yeah, so one of the requirements is here.
And Evan, these are new requirements that were just handed down?
I don't believe that they are new.
Oh, okay.
The building department usually does catch this, and typically, we aren't looking at it so closely in the planning review. However, we have been paying closer attention to these requirements now. And I apologize, I should have had the projector on. My apologies. So this is from the building code. The important part we're looking at is that section outlined in blue. So there is a list of pre-approved materials from the state fire marshal, and then there's also other requirements or other materials that can be approved when they meet special testing requirements. So what we did was we looked at this alternative material. We saw that it was met the ASTM E84 testing requirement, and then the additional test below in criteria 2. So it was tested for an additional 20 minutes beyond the E84 requirements. So it is a it did exceed the flame testing requirements in criteria 1, which is I can show you this. So this was from the material test, or the material that I passed around. This was the test results from that test.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to become a more topic of discussion because of the wildfire urban interface requirements we're going to be facing. Okay, is there any more discussion? Good. All right. Did any members of the public want any item on the consent agenda pulled for any questions, discussion? Don't see any hands going up. Any commissioners?
No.
Okay, in that case, I'm going to make a motion that we accept items 1, 2, and 3 on the consent agenda. Have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Alborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapekov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LaPage?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, that brings us to orders of business. We have, first on the orders of business, we have a review of the draft housing element amendment and revised Chapter 2 and new index Appendix C. You have a staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair LaPage and Planning Commission. I just want to start while Marnie's getting her presentation pulled up, a bit of a thanks and a bit of an introduction. Tonight represents a large milestone for the housing element amendment. As you recall, we set off with a goal of better spreading our housing units across the city rather than using our 2 city-owned sites. So we believe we're coming to you with a solution tonight. The thanks goes to staff. Marnie did a wonderful, amazing job as always on this. The community, as you know, we've worked with the AHA resident group, several of whom are here tonight and will be part of the presentation. Interestingly, Councilmember Buder and I, when we were working one of the late nights doing updates to this, we were tossing around some language and we wrote, hundreds of volunteer hours, and then it got changed to literally thousands of volunteer hours that went into this effort. And that's not an exaggeration, that's reality. So I wanted to come up and just set that stage and thank everybody who was involved in this. This effort was a true representation of what city and resident collaboration can do. And so with that, Marnie's going to go through the presentation. She's got all the great details, and then she's going to bring up a few of those AHA members throughout the presentation to be part of that. It is a bit of a unique presentation, so we appreciate your patience and everyone in the audience, because it will be a little bit longer than normal, but I think that you'll find that it's worth it to get you ready for the 20th when you have your joint meeting with the City Council. So, Marnie.
Thank you, Brandon, and good afternoon. So we are going to talk about the housing element, and we're going to focus on, as Brandon mentioned, the amendment that we've been working on for the last 10 months or so. So tonight's agenda is to review the draft revisions to the housing element Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the programs. That's where they all live in the housing element. We're also reviewing Appendix C, Appendix C is where all the analysis lives that supports the programs that end up being in Chapter 2. So it's more of the technical portions of the document. So we're not going to dive into the details of that so much, but it is where our site's inventory table is located. So we'll touch on that a little bit. So I'm going to start with how we got here, what's going to happen next, and then we're going to dive into the 5 strategies that the AHA group has been working on. And it's at that time that members of the AHA group will come up and discuss the strategies that they have been working on specifically. Then I will talk about just some other minor revisions that are being proposed, and then we'll have time for some question and answers and some feedback. So how did we get here? As you may recall, when we were starting the discussion about the housing element, the state of California estimated that statewide there was a need for 2.5 million new homes. And so they took that projection and they divided it up regionally. And our share within Monterey and Santa Cruz County was 33,274 units. From there, it was, divvied up among the 2 counties and all the cities in those 2 counties, and ultimately our share was 349 units, and I think everyone is familiar with that number at this point. Of that, 231 must be affordable. So our responsibility is to identify potential sites within our village that can accommodate these units. And we did that. And in April of 2024, City Council adopted our 6-cycle housing element. We met the statutory deadline, which protected the village from builder's remedy. However, what that meant was part of our strategy was putting 65% of our affordable housing onto city-owned sites. And that's the 149 units that is referenced in some of the discussions that we've been talking about as part of this amendment. So the City Council adopted a resolution, I believe it was in July of 2024, that said, staff, please work with the Affordable Housing Alternatives Group. Take a look and see if there are other strategies to disperse affordable housing throughout our community instead of concentrating them on these 2 sites. So the idea was to supercharge existing housing element programs. That's kind of where the discussion started. There was a focus on hotels, on the downtown, on our accessory dwelling units, and also on our church sites. And looking at those programs and seeing how can we supercharge them to incorporate more affordable housing that was dispersed around the village. The AHA group, really took, they took the lead in this effort and really invested a lot of hours. We've been meeting with them for the last 10 months. They've created subcommittees to really focus on these different topic areas. There's been a lot of research on best practices, collecting and analyzing a lot of data, reviewing state law and other housing element programs. There have been community workshops, meetings with developers and churches and property owners. There's just been a ton of work that's been done over the last 10 months. We've also retained a consultant, Veronica Tam, and she's been assisting us with the technical aspects of housing element law. And then also we've had regular meetings with the State Department of Housing and Community Development to review our, revised or supercharged strategies to make sure that, the work that we were doing, we were going in the right direction, and that they were strategies that the state could ultimately support. So what happens next? We're here this evening because we want the Planning Commission to take a look at Chapter 2, take a look at Appendix C, We want to have a conversation with you, regarding these revisions before the joint meeting, which will occur next week. We want to talk about the 5 strategies with you about dispersing the affordable housing and some of these other revisions, just to get you, more familiar with them, continue that conversation, take a look at the revised sites inventory, and where we've sort of landed at this point on where the potential housing sites are, get some feedback on that, and then answer any questions that you have. I do want to just emphasize that this is an early draft. As we, continue through these discussions, things can change and things likely will change. There's a review process that needs to happen at the state level, and things can change through that review process as well. So just kind of keep that in mind, that these, this is a draft. Nothing has been set in stone at this stage. So things can be refined. So again, next week on May 20th, there will be the joint City Council Planning Commission meeting. This will be a second review of what you're seeing tonight. It's another opportunity for questions and feedback from the public, as well as, from the commission, and then also the City Council. Staff and the AHA group will take the feedback that we get. We will polish these drafts before we submit them to the state for an informal friendly review. They have kindly agreed to look over this consolidated draft of our revisions and give us some feedback before we proceed with any kind of formal submittal. We are targeting May 30th for that friendly review submittal date, and we're estimating about a 3-week review time at the state level. So we're hoping to hear back from them maybe by the end of June on that informal review. So the 5 strategies, what started out was supercharging 4 programs has really developed into 5 strategies. And that resulted from splitting the downtown up into 2 separate strategies. So we have our hotel to residential conversion program. We also refer to that as our hotel key transfer program. And this is a subcommittee that has been led by Tim Toomey, along with Mark Watson. And Tim's going to be presenting on that strategy this evening. We have our downtown mixed income incentive program, and Hans Buder is going to be presenting on that strategy tonight. We also have our downtown live work program. Victoria Beach as well as Hans Buder have been working on that program together. Unfortunately, Victoria is traveling and could not be here this evening, so Hans is going to present that strategy as well. Our 4th strategy is accessory dwelling units, and that strategy is led by Nancy Toomey, and so she's going to present on that this evening. And then the 5th strategy is the housing on religious facility-owned property, aka church property, and this is another one that Victoria Beach has taken the lead on, and I'll be presenting that one in her absence this evening. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Tim Toomey, who's going to walk you through the strategy on the hotel to residential program.
Thank you, Marnie. And good evening, Chair LePage and planning commissioners. Nice to be here. I just want to do a shout out to my AHA colleagues and the city staff. I mean, this has been an unbelievable journey for the last 10 or 11 months. And there's so much information behind all of these presentations. It's just, this just really covers the surface. It's so hard to get, the level of detail into these slides, but, we're gonna try our best. And again, to Marnie, Brandon, and Anna for, collaborating with us. So on this hotel to residential program, this was actually in the 4th and 5th cycle housing elements, and we took a look at it. There were no credits associated with it from HCD, it was, kind of a, it wasn't getting any traction. There just wasn't any substance to it to really incentivize it. So as Marnie said, I worked with Mark Watson, who's a manager of 3 hotels here in town, and he's really an expert and a subject matter expert in this field. So in working with him, we started drilling through some of the other housing elements to see, were there any ideas that they had. And we came across one from Newport Beach that we kind of modeled this one after. But it is basically just reimagining the old 1.3B into just a totally different program that takes advantage of the hotel key and the value of that to help make this a viable program. So next slide, please. So the way it works, and this took a while for actually all of us to really understand, but it's basically, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. There are three parties that are involved in this program, and it's really interdependent upon those three. I just kind of skipped to the bottom. The hotel owner, a affordable housing developer, and a hotel developer are all needed to make this program work. So it starts off with a hotel owner getting with a hotel developer and he or she sells the underperforming hotel, which will be converted into affordable housing. Developer buys it, converts it into mixed income housing, and at that point can either keep it or sell it. And then the next piece is that affordable housing developer sells the rights to the hotel room keys to a third party, which is either another hotel or a hotel developer. So people have talked about the benefit, kind of the thing that supercharges this are the selling of the rights to the hotel keys. And the program just alone, if you took a existing underperforming hotel, converted it to affordable housing, you're going to get a halfway decent income return on it, net operating income, but it's going to be worth less than what you bought it for because there's quite a bit that goes into converting the rooms to affordable housing, and there's a transition from the hotel, let's say it was 20 rooms, we've only figured, and we modeled this out with some of Mark's hotels, that we're only going to get about an 85% conversion rate. So it doesn't, just that alone doesn't work, but when you add the sale of the hotel keys into it, it doubles the opportunity. So that's when we say it's the opportunity of selling it twice, is being able to sell the building that you just bought, the hotel, converting it into affordable housing, selling that, with minimal loss, and then selling the hotel keys. So that's basically how it works. Hopefully that was clear. Okay, next slide, please. And then here are the program benefits. It's an innovative approach. It's been reimagined from the former program. It allows the hotel the transfer of the rights. In the previous program, it was only transferring the rights from one property to a new property somewhere else. This is allowing not only a transfer, but a sale of those rights. And then it optimizes the resources. It's a community benefit because now those underperforming hotels are hopefully really nice mixed-use units. It aligns with the village character because a lot of the hotels that we're looking at are small. They're scattered throughout the village, and this, as they're converted, this will scatter, the affordable housing around the village. And then this superpower that we have, it basically, we have a 948 room cap in town, so leveraging that really increases the value of the hotel keys, because if hotel came in and wanted to build a new hotel, there are no hotel rights available. So the only way to get those is through one of the ways to get those, probably the only way, is to get those through this program. and we're at that cap. So that's a real huge opportunity. And then this program is privately funded, and this helps with the ease of just faster turnaround time and flexibility. And public funding is very competitive and obviously very scarce. So next slide, please. So the incentives then are the transfer and the sale of the hotel keys to another property in a commercial district. And when we're looking at the conversion into the affordable housing, it's either a redevelopment, a scrape and a redevelopment, or an adaptive reuse. And when we looked at raising the building and redeveloping it, we'd like to make sure that we include a modest increase in density in that piece of it. And then this hotel residential suites in the new hotels. This is something that we picked up again from the Newport Beach housing element. And what they are owner-occupied units for 1% of the year, and it's not for the whole. It's not the whole hotel. It's just maybe 25 or 30% of the rooms are these residential suites. So that provides funding for the developer. It's upfront capital to help get the project going. And actually, as we looked into it more, and we talked to a couple of real estate agents, they said that this could be an alternative to second home ownership, that folks looking for second home ownership might be more interested in purchasing one of these suites to use it part-time. It's to worry about maintenance, et cetera. So there's an advantage there. And like I said, the upfront capital helps with the overall project viability. Then the last four are just really important. The allocation of water credits, streamlining the permit review and the processing, and reduced or waived permitting fees. And we're looking at this for the whole program. It has to apply to the affordable housing component and the new hotel. This is kind of a package that all of these components are required to make the project viable. The components of affordable, the three that I talked about earlier. So I think that is about it. Oh no, there's one last page that has the Grand Slam here. So we did actually the city identified the underperforming hotels through a TOT review of all the hotels in town for, I think it was 23, 24 data. And from that, we identified 15 underperforming hotels representing 379 hotel rooms. And like I said, there's an 85% conversion rate. So that brings it down from the 379 to 322. And then as Mark and I were kind of kicking it around, and we talked to the AHA group about it and some developers in town and outside of town, they said, you might want to drop that to maybe a 50% interest rate, not interest, that developers and hotel owners, 50% of them might be interested with this project. So we went conservative, reduced it down. That brought it down to 161, and we're looking at 75% affordable, and that would be split low, very low, low, moderate, 25%, 25%, 25%, and then 25% market rate. So what we get out of that is 161 total units, 120 affordable, and 41 market rate. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
And maybe I'm not understanding this program, but you said you need three parties to make this work.
Right.
You got a hotel, you got an underperforming or a motivated seller of a property, hotel property now.
Right.
That's okay, and then you have the developer.
Right.
They're going to buy the hotel. They're going to buy the property, and they're going to develop these units. And then, and I remember from your other presentation we saw a few weeks back that at that point the cost of the development of the hotel rooms and the price buying the hotel, they're not making any money.
Right.
It's a negative.
Right.
So then you said what really supercharges it is this sale of the hotel keys, which you estimate at $300,000 a piece.
Right.
So my question is, when the developer, the second party, buys this, isn't that value already in the price of the hotel? I mean, that's part of the equity that the hotel owner has.
Exactly.
So how does the developer get his money, the $300,000 out?
So I think another way to look at it is that when the affordable housing developer, the first developer buys the property, the old underperforming hotel, they're buying it for, let's say the keys are worth $300,000. That hotel might be worth, if you took the value of the hotel, building, property, and whatever the comps are in the area, it's going to come out to some $1 million number. You divide the rooms into that, it's going to give you like a cost per key, but that's not really the driver here. It's, let me back up a second. So you buy the underperforming hotel. What you're buying is you're buying the building, and the keys are an integral part of that. So you have equity in the building and you have equity in the keys. Okay.
Oh, the developers.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying, but this doesn't make sense to me because the value of the keys is set. That's what the owner of the hotel has. Those have a fixed amount, whatever at a certain point in the market. Now, what you're saying, which I think what you're trying to say is that because it's an underperforming property, it's not going to be as valuable as a property that was performing at market rates. So the developer is going to get he's buying a low value. There's a low value there, but then he's going to have to put the money in to developing the units into individual, and that's so he's got costs there.
Right. Yeah,
and so the keys are out. As far as I see it, the keys are just a pass through for the developer.
No.
How are the keys not a pass through?
Okay, so let me just grab something.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, I may not be understanding this, but that's why I'm asking questions.
Oh yeah. A lot of us didn't understand it at first. So there's a pro forma in the documents that you guys had, and we kind of went over this at a high level at the last meeting that we had with you. But let me just find okay. So there's a summary pro forma in the Appendix C, and then there's a detailed pro forma coming, and I've got actually it here.
Is that in the appendix that we have in the so I can bring that up on my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the summary.
So that's on the. So that's in the.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Tim, is the value of the keys, though, there would have to be a demand for the keys?
Exactly.
Okay,
right.
so if there's no developer who's planning to do an expansion of an existing hotel or build a new hotel, then that value would not be, they wouldn't be receiving any value from that. Is that right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
I mean,
that?
the only time that the keys have value is if somebody wants to purchase those keys to expand either an existing hotel or build.
For sure, yeah. So you look, hotel development, and that's kind of where also this residential hotel residential suite idea comes into play. New developer, hotel developer comes into town. And it's really, the interest has been on the side of the developers that we've talked to. The hotel owners, it's really good, kind of like, well, who's interested? And I think as soon as the program, gets formalized, the developers are going to be approaching, some of these hotel owners to try to work out a deal. But what they're looking at, so hotel developers coming into town, they're looking to develop a hotel. So, a couple of things are going to play into this. One is, well, okay, I'm going to buy those keys, so I have the rights to build a hotel. I'm out, couple $1 million, well, more than, so I'm out $6 million for that. I've got to find the land to build this hotel. But there's an opportunity in this program to sell those keys to existing hotels if they want to add, to their existing property. And it's just, that's part of their investment strategy. They're going to have to figure out, well, if I want to come to town and build a hotel, here's an opportunity, because if I want to do it today, I've got to buy a hotel and get those keys. So that's, they've told us that, this is going to be really difficult. This is going to be really difficult because of the fact that there's no room for new hotels, even if you have the keys. So some of them said what they might do is, well, I might buy another hotel and, scrape that and add my other hotel keys to it. It wouldn't be gigantic, and we're talking, 10, 15, 20 rooms, and do it like that. There was one group, private equity firm, that their model is they come in to a destination town like ours, they buy a hotel, they upscale it, and they look for another hotel, and they buy that, and then they convert that to employee housing. So we're like, oh, that would really be nice. But yeah, so, okay.
And can I ask a question? So in your vision, do you anticipate, because it does seem more likely that existing performing hotels would want to add locations, do you anticipate that the keys would be broken up? They wouldn't be sold as like one bulk? Or do you think like the seller would piece them out to various hotels?
So I think it could go a couple of ways. It could go, hotel developer comes to town, says, I want to build a hotel, I need some keys, boom, I'm going to take them, off I go. There could be, and there's been interest from 2 hotels. I don't know who they are, because the person we were talking to was, just an acquaintance of them, and was wondering about the program, and that individual said, my friend has a hotel and they're interested in adding a couple of rooms. How can that happen? And I said, well, this is going on, but then also there's the other program that we're not talking about is the hotel employee program. We've kind of redone that. There's no credit associated with it. We're not projecting any numbers around it, but we've added, it was originally written where you create an affordable employee housing unit, and you get a hotel unit, in place of that. And we're basically saying, same thing, but you could also sell that hotel key. And there's at least one hotel in town that we know of that is going to be adding a couple of employee housing units, and they don't want to increase, they don't want the additional rooms for hotel rooms. So that would be an opportunity there. So I think what we need to do, in putting this all together, is come up with a kind of a strategy or a structure on how this would be managed, how these keys would be managed for all of these various situations.
And so going back to Chair LePage's question, do you anticipate that, like, if I'm currently an owner of an underperforming hotel, can I, in the process of selling, can I remove the keys and keep them for myself before I sell the property to a developer that wants to come in? And so therefore, I'm removing a portion of the value prior to the sale, and then I'm holding that back for myself, and allowing the developer to come in and develop the affordable housing without having to pay for the keys up front, but be able to just buy the property.
So if I understand that question, there's actually a flow diagram that we're going to put in the next presentation that gets into a little bit more detail, but one of the options is the original hotel owner could say, I am going to convert my hotel to affordable housing. We got the money to do it. I want to hang on to it. I want to manage it because there's some profit on the pro formas that we did in doing that. And then I'll sell my hotel keys.
Okay.
Or keep
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, keep them. Yeah.
Yeah, they could
Okay.
keep them for a long time.
Chair LePage, did you on that
There's
question?
a lot of questions with this. You know, I mean, the whole point of this is to find other locations for affordable housing so that we can shift
Yes.
our arena numbers
Right.
to
Yes.
different properties.
Yes.
Now, and I see a big problem here in this chain of sales. You still haven't explained to me how the middle guy, the developer, is going to make any money on this. And if they don't make money, they don't have any incentive.
Okay,
Now,
so-
what Commissioner Allen was asking, whether the seller of the hotel can keep the keys separately, that hasn't been answered, and I don't know if that's even possible. So essentially, what that owner will be doing is converting their hotel to apartments, which as you said in the report, some of the apartments have been converted
Right.
to hotels.
Yeah.
But at this point, we don't have any available keys. We have 978 rooms. Is that the max?
948.
948. Okay, and right now there's 948, right? They're all allocated. There's no excess keys available.
Correct.
Okay, so we just have to deal with existing properties. So if somebody sells their hotel, doesn't sell it, they convert their hotel, then there's going to be whatever. If they have 16 units, there's going to be 16 keys that are going to be in surplus.
Correct.
That somebody, if they can sell them, or that owner could take those and then they could develop another property. Say they could buy another property that was an apartment building now, they convert that, or they could buy a condo or something, convert it. I don't know what all the opportunities are, but I just see that the incentives here are not real clear, and maybe I'm not getting all of it, and I would like to sit down in private and go over this more in detail. I don't want to take up any more time about this because
Okay.
there's a lot of other, so I'm
Yeah.
going to just leave it there.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to do that because, like I said, it takes a while for this to really sink in because there's so many moving parts.
there
But
are.
we did talk to an affordable hotel developer, and the way he would work is he'd buy the hotel, he'd convert it into affordable housing, and then he would sell the hotel keys. And he said, unless I know that there's an opportunity to sell those hotel keys, I'm really not interested because that's where I'm going to get my payback. So anyhow, I'll make sure you guys have what you need because I think it's a great program.
Thank you. Appreciate your report.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
So I just want to add to, thank you, Tim. So the stage that we're at right now, these are all excellent questions. The AHA group has spent a lot of time researching and developing this program to make sure that it would be viable. There's always the market-driven kind of aspect to this. We think that we have enough confidence in this program that we are proposing to put it in the housing element, and we think that we can get 161 units counted towards our arena. So we think we can approach the state and say this program could produce up to 161 units. Like, we have confidence in that as part of this housing element amendment. Once that amendment gets approved by the state, then we would delve into some of the more details of how that program works. Like, can you sell the keys individually, or do they have to go as a group? How does the water work? How does all of those other intricacies work to make the program viable? And a super important part of that really is talking with the developers to understand what their needs are for them to partake of the program. Because if they don't partake, then it's not going to
Marty,
happen.
I think the confusion came from this previous slide where it said the hotel owner sells the keys versus what we heard right now is that the developer who buys the hotel, the developer sells the keys. That's the confusion. It's probably one of the, can we go back in the slides? I can show you where it was. One step back. Down in where was this developer converts hotel to housing? There was on the Underperforming hotel commercial. Sells the rights, oh, that's the developer, sells the rights to the hotel room keys. Okay, it's correct, actually, yeah. So that's how they make money.
I don't want to take any more time on this because there's a lot more to this, but believe me,
Okay.
nobody's answering my question here. I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
That doesn't answer my question, but I don't want to take more time on it, and obviously this is going to require a lot more discussion, so let's move on.
All right.
One question, Marnie, before we go on. So we have a consultant, and this person is very knowledgeable on what the state will and won't accept. But we haven't actually run any of this by the state.
Oh, no, we have.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't know if you were referred to that, like, they'll take a sneak peek before the actual review as that was in the future. But they've actually already been looking at this.
They've seen every single strategy individually. And so they've seen it all. They understand what we're proposing. They've told us where we need to, make some adjustments, some things to consider. This will be the first time they see all of the strategies combined. But no, they've seen all of these so far. So this program, again, would yield 161 units, and of those, 120 would be affordable. Next up, Hans is going to talk about the Downtown Mixed Income Incentive Program.
Chair LePage, Planning Commissioners, good to see you. So I'm going to start with the Downtown Mixed Income Incentive Program. High level, we have a couple of programs here that are tailored to specific kinds of properties, hotels, unique properties that could accommodate live-work units. What we wanted to do was create a program with sort of broader applicability that could really apply or be used by any downtown property owner that was interested in potentially adding affordable housing. And so that's the goal. The second goal is to incentivize the construction of mixed income housing. So to not only distribute housing at varying income levels throughout the community, but even at the property level to have it be mixed income. And so this program was sort of inspired to some extent by Trevette Court, which is a Carmel Foundation property north of the post office parking lot. Trevette Court itself is actually 100% affordable senior development. It's got 14 units. It's pretty dense. It's 76 dwelling units per acre. And it's on an 8,000 square foot lot. So basically a double lot in the commercial district. And, one of the things that we thought about it was it feels like a Carmel building. The scale seems to work, despite all that density. It's got a courtyard. And so we had some of the architects we were working with here locally do some space planning exercises and basically see what could you do on an 8,000 square foot lot if you had ground floor commercial, which Trevette Court does not, while keeping it, 2 stories, a very Carmel type building. And what we found was, plus or minus, 88 dwelling units an acre still allowed us to sort of check all those boxes. And so that's kind of where some of this came from. So it's basically a program whereby we would incentivize a certain type of income mix. And it's not specifically spelled out in the housing element, but the goal is for it to be tentatively 30% affordable and 70% market rate, partially because we want there to be an ability for these projects to pencil for somebody so that they actually, do it and produce some housing. And in order to do that, you've got to have enough market rate units for the juice to make it work. And so essentially, if somebody added units either through a conversion or through a redevelopment at that type of income mix, they would have a number of incentives. One incentive would be higher density. So I'm not talking about an FAR bonus, but I'm talking about a density bonus in terms of the number of dwelling units per acre. So sort of how many units can you fit inside the box? And currently, our max for 100% affordable development is 88 dwelling units per acre. But as soon as you go mixed income and you add, one market rate unit, now you're down to, what are we down at, Brandon? 33 dwelling units an acre?
Yeah.
So the goal here was to sort of level the playing field there, give folks the benefit of that additional density, which, as you think about filling in units in that type of box, it will increase the return on the project. And then in addition, I'd say the other major incentive here is water. And so providing the water not only for the affordable units, but also for the market rate units that are required to make the project viable. And so those are the two main incentives. Like pretty much all of the other programs, we're also proposing expedited processing, not only with the staff jumping to the front of the line for processing with the staff, but also potentially jumping to the line for you all in terms of your queue. So if somebody came in with one of these projects, that would be kind of next on the playlist. And then also waived or reduced permitting fees. So these are, the core elements of the proposal. The benefits are that it would, create a market-based incentive to create mixed income housing downtown. It would distribute housing for various income groups throughout the village, which was one of the goals on this amendment from the start. And that it's a structure that wouldn't require tax credits or public subsidies, and that would be economically viable and would clear the hurdle rate for a property owner without public funding. And then lastly, while it's not spelled out here in the housing element, again, this is sort of, the housing element is kind of the high level paradigm. When it gets to implementation, the goal is to incentivize some larger bedroom counts to help encourage the creation of units that could accommodate families. And so just in terms of the numbers, we didn't go for a huge number of RENA credits on this one. Honestly, it would be a pretty big deal to be able to get credit for 8,000 square foot sites when typically HCD is looking for a half acre, so 21,000 square feet. And so there are 3 particular sites that we have listed, all have owner interest through our outreach efforts. And the projection, we actually think that we would have more units on these sites, but for complicated reasons, for actual RENA credit, we're just looking at 27, 9 affordable, and 18 market rate. So moving on to the Downtown Live Work program. You read about it in the housing element, but there was a really significant data gathering effort here. We created an app for the iPhone where we could have volunteers. We had 17 volunteers out there canvassing the entire downtown. We looked at over 200 downtown properties, every property in the downtown, and we cataloged, about 1,000 leasable spaces in the downtown. Mel was out there on some freezing cold days doing it herself. And so there were a lot of insights that we gained from that. But one of the insights that we gained was there's kind of 2 downtown Carmels when it comes to commercial real estate. There is the Carmel that we all think of, those commercial spaces that are very high rent, very high occupancy. They're on main streets like Ocean Avenue. You could have rents that are north of $7 a square foot triple net. And then there's this other Carmel, the Carmel that's kind of around the corner, down an alley, in a courtyard. You have these sort of impaired commercial spaces that are less institutional. They have relatively high vacancy rates, or rates of what we consider underutilization. So you'd be going and you'd see a space that was used for storage, or you'd see a space that was vacant or for rent, or you'd see a space that had a sign that said by appointment only, or by appointment, or chance, which is one of my favorites. And the the insight was basically the commercial brokers told us that those spaces rent for like $1.50 to $2 a square foot triple net. It's actually a really low rent, especially if you think about these spaces are often small, 300, 400, 500 square feet. And, you know, so I guess the critical insight was the realization that, you know, we don't have a live-work use in Carmel, but if we did, even if that live-work unit was deed restricted at an affordable rental level, a property owner could make more money, in many cases significantly more money, renting that unit as a deed restricted live-work unit than as a purely commercial space. And when you consider that, like, at given cap rates for Carmel commercial real estate, you are, for every incremental dollar of net operating income, you're increasing your property value by 25 to 30x. All of a sudden, it starts to become really interesting. And so you have these low rent impaired commercial spaces, and the program here is to create a new use category specifically for the downtown, for those zoning districts, where we would create kind of this hybrid use category, the live-work use, where you'd have a commercial storefront, and then in the rear, behind a wall or partition, residential space. And you would only be allowed to convert to that live-work use if it was a deed-restricted, affordable unit. And you know, that's obviously one incentive, and the math that I just outlined is one of the sort of incentives baked into this. The basic idea is you're going to make more money and enhance the value of the property. We would also provide the water for these conversions, and then, as I said before, the expedited processing and the waived or reduced permit fees. The benefits are that you are taking existing square footage. You're not building net new square footage, so you're not changing the character of the town in that way. You are providing housing opportunities. You're essentially getting back to Carmel's roots. You're creating a way for artists and shopkeepers and small entrepreneurs to find a way to live in Carmel again, which we thought was really interesting. Potentially those folks would be more locally serving. And then lastly, you're activating areas of the downtown that aren't super activated at the moment. And so overall, we found it to be a win-win. You know, it's a win for the community. It's a win for the property owner who's making more money and having a higher value property. And it's a win for the tenant because they're potentially taking two rents. Somewhere they've got a commercial space and somewhere they've got a rental that they're living in, and they're combining that into a single rent that's at a deed restricted affordable level. And on this one, you know, we identified 250 potential live work spaces downtown. We identified 20 properties that had a high enough concentration of those spaces that we considered them sort of live work, you know, potential sites. We claimed or are hoping to claim 14 of those 20 for RENA credit. And there's about 116 potential live work units in those properties. For the ones that had owner interest, we gave 100% credit. For the ones that didn't have owner interest, we gave 50% credit, and that worked out to 85 units. And so that's what's listed in the main summary table that we're hoping to claim for RENA credit. Thank you.
Hans, could you remind us, or maybe Marnie, if you don't have it on the top of your head, what is an affordable, what are the incomes for very low and low?
Marnie, do you have access to the drive? It might be worth it, just pull it up.
I bring that up because they're much higher than people, I think, usually think.
For sure.
Yeah. That's why I bring it up. That in
it's
this
worth
area, they're often professional level wages.
Yeah, Marnie, it's loose on the drive.
Oh,
There
I just want to remind the speakers that if you're not speaking into the mic, it isn't on the record. So it's better if you wait and then come up to the mic and then make your comments. We appreciate your comments, but we need to get them on the record.
Hans, is there a minimum square footage that would be needed to do a live-work situation?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the specifics. We definitely dug into that. There are state minimums, and what the
170.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a livable unit.
The number, and obviously you'd want to have enough space for the commercial space, but the numbers we were looking at, we were sort of starting, I believe, around 350 square feet. But yeah, the numbers in terms of like the strict minimum requirements are like surprisingly low.
Okay, thanks.
Unfortunately, I don't have access to the drive.
It's okay. I mean, the broader point is, I think Mel makes a good point, and we should start including those numbers in these presentations, because it really is shocking. A lot of those, especially for moderate income, very high. So.
And workforce, yeah.
Oh, Brandon found it. The income limits for very low income for a family of 4 is 66,000. For low income for a family of 4 is 106,000. And for moderate income for a family of 4 is 124,000.
And how about individual?
Individual for very low is 46,000. For low income single person 74,000. Still pretty high. And then for moderate income 87,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
I think you've got ADUs next. That's Nancy Toomey. That's me. Thank you guys for what you do. Okay, ADUs. We covered this in a prior meeting, but we'll just do a refresher here. Clearly, our emphasis here is to really leverage existing state legislation. And our friendly, wonderful Sacramento folks continue to roll out incremental legislation in this ADU category to make sure that they fly through any administrative process that happens throughout any and all of the communities throughout the state. They want, their objectives are to have ministerial approvals on everything that fits under this ADU umbrella. They continue to look at the world of California as a one-stop, one-shoe-fits-all kind of model, so that may or may not in all cases. And as mentioned here, and you have seen preliminary views of the updated ADU ordinance, which will allow us to be more over time as Evan gets to the next stage of his reveal, to be more Carmel-specific with what happens with ADUs. In the meantime, we're all about following the state laws in what we're doing with our program and what you've seen in the document. I wanted to mention on the second bullet, it's the sub-bullet of the second section there, sorry, previous page if I can real quick, there is an amnesty program and legislation that's been rolled out by the state. And as a reference, this really is all about taking existing structures beyond the primary dwelling unit and embracing them as full housing in what we're rolling out to meet our arenas. And right as of recent time frames here, Marnie can keep me honest on any of this, that there are about 20 of the units that have been permitted in the last end period of time, 1 or 2 years, something of that nature, that have actually been conversions of cottages or other outbuildings on existing property. And that allows us to minimize impact to all of our residential neighborhoods. So if we can do more of that, then we're making them legitimate ADUs and also bringing new full-time residents to our village, which we're all looking to do throughout all of these programs. There is also a requirement by state law to be able to take pre-approved ADU plans and roll them out in the village. There's been one of those done already. So there are a portfolio of a lot of plans that exist throughout the region that folks could select from. So we aren't necessarily, but it's early because we're working it, that we may have some pre-approved plans that are actually posted on our site, but pre-done plans that come from other areas could be embraced and rolled out in what we'll move forward with. And you will see all of that in the documents that you have. And then again, we need to continue to keep our finger on the pulse of what Sacramento is up to, because they continue to change and provide a moving target for us in this area, because they really look at this as a big win for our arena across all areas of the state. Did also want to just reinforce up front here that we have seen already a lot of success to date inside this sixth cycle of the RENA program. There are 45 either permitted and or already licensed to occupy units in our city. So there's a lot of momentum already that we want to just continue to capture, because all of those units do count towards our RENA numbers. Next. And this kind of goes into just a little bit more detail that you can kind of read from the slide. We're looking to work on that renter match program, which for those folks who don't know how to find easily a renter, that we can take advantage of what the Carmel Foundation already does today to look at especially low-income folks to be able to guide them towards these ADU units throughout the village. So that's, we are looking for that as a part of what we'll roll out. Also roll out a pre-sales inspection program where we don't currently today, when a transaction occurs of the sale of a home, look to do an inspection to make sure that they're up to code. But that's something, again, that's in the queue for us to develop in the coming years to discover where there might be unpermitted cottages or the like that could be candidate for rolling into an ADU program. So that will help us, again, uncover ones that don't come via a volunteer path. We are also have developed a Considering ADU guide that is already published on the city's website. Hopefully that's updated. I don't know if it is yet. I've fed information to Marnie, but the intent for that is to take people who have existing property and have no clue what the options are and what variations on ADUs are allowed within the existing state law. That's all in one document with the processes and the steps that you go through. It does touch base on amnesty. It talks about the JADUs and ADUs and what the parameters of those requirements are. So that exists today, and again, will continue to be updated as we're shooting at the moving target of what Sacramento provides for us. Okay, I think we'll also work with architects and new property owners and existing property owners to provide more awareness about what's involved in considering an ADU. So there's a lot of good marketing efforts to advance the outcomes for this ADU parts and pieces for our village. Yes, and so all of that produces inside the scope of the documents that you're previewing here today. We'll produce 77 units in our revised amendment. And indeed, we're looking to increase that permanent housing stock. I like to call out here that, as we all know, and you guys see all these permits and everything coming through that may or may not include an ADU that you don't have a voice on, but we also look to recognizing that our village has got a lot of second homeowners, and making sure that there are, or enabling, advancing, encouraging ADUs on those properties brings life to those properties, bring safe and security to those properties, and more residents to our village. So hopefully that, encouraging the second homeowners to do that, keep their primary residence for when they're here, whatever is the part-time for them, but have the ADU occupied with renters. And with regard to incentives, right now we're getting a lot of momentum without incentives. So the question is what do we need to do to really enable continued progress on this front? And one of the issues that always comes up, and we've talked about, is do we extend a priority water credits to folks, especially those that are considering a deed restricted for affordable. And that's in the camp of stuff that can begin to evolve as we formalize and dot I's and cross T's and follow-ups to approving this cycle of our housing element. But that will come. And again, deed restricting would be extending possibility, even if we felt it's necessary to do so. Consider things like discounted fees, and then that priority water that we talked about. But it's all about increasing the vitality and the presence of affordability and rental units throughout the town with a minimal disruption and something that fits our village. So we're hoping we'll achieve that through encouraging ADUs in our town. I think that's it. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, staff can probably answer, but
Thank you, Nancy.
ADUs are considered affordable, is that correct, as far as the RHNA count goes?
The state does allow us to project a certain number of affordable. So of this proposed 77, there is a portion that we can count towards our RHNA.
So there's no requirement then to actually have a deed restricted ADU in order to meet that goal, is that right? I mean, it's just up to you to say whether you've met the goal or not.
The challenge is that the state allows us to project a certain amount will be affordable, but when we actually build them, if they are not deed restricted affordable, or otherwise, if we are not able to prove that they are affordable based on market conditions, then we can't count them towards the RHNA on that end. So we can count them up front, but we have to be able to justify it at the construction side.
Because that's a big problem, yeah. Okay. And of the existing ADUs that have been permitted in the last several years that you've been tracking, have any of those had deed restrictions for affordability?
No.
Thank you.
All right, so the fifth strategy is religious facilities. And again, Victoria Beach does send her regrets. She's traveling today and cannot present the strategy. So I will be doing that on her behalf. So this is a revamped program. Again, a lot of these programs were in the housing element, but they're really being restructured. And this one is being restructured to follow Senate Bill 4, which is the Affordable Housing on Faith and Higher Education Lands Act of 2023. So this bill was passed while we were sort of deep in our housing element amendment process, and we were not able to adjust to account for it and still meet kind of our timelines. So the current housing element doesn't address Senate Bill 4. But what it does is it's a state law that allows a project in Carmel on a church-owned property to build up to 20 dwelling units per acre by right if it is 100% affordable. And so what we've done is we have 5 church sites in town. We've looked at all of the 5 sites. We've done outreach. There was a community meeting that was held. Representatives from all 5 churches did attend. They seem very interested and open to having conversations about housing. There were 3 in particular that have showed the most interest, and so we've included those 3 sites in this proposed amendment, and those are listed there on the screen. The benefits of this program really encourages that natural synergy between the faith communities and those in need of support. It really aligns with a lot of the mission of the churches. It leverages properties that are some of the largest in the village, and it provides a vehicle for translating interest into action. So again, some of these churches, we met with them as a group and we've met with them sort of individually, and it's something that they're really interested in doing. They just need some help kind of creating a path towards what that would look like and how to achieve that on their properties. So a lot of the incentives for this program actually come from state law. As you can see on this screen, 4 are from state legislation, and then 3 are from the city. And you'll notice sort of a pattern here of what the city has to offer, and that's, the water, the expedited application processing, and the reduced permitting fees. You're going to see that consistently throughout our programs because it's sort of what we have right now to offer for these housing projects. When we stand up our housing trust fund and we're able to put some money into that, that will be another incentive or another avenue that we can support, affordable housing projects. But at the state level, there are exemptions from environmental review for housing on church properties. The state offers reduction in parking requirements, increased density, and by right approvals. All of these intended to streamline housing specifically on property owned by church facilities, church facilities. So in looking at the 3 of the 5 church properties and the allowed density, we're projecting approximately 65 units across all 3 of those sites. Again, under SB4, they would all have to be affordable. And so that would be what we would include towards our RENA for this particular strategy. And again, just to kind of maybe just frame this again for you, these 5 strategies that we're showing you this evening, this is the meat of each of these programs. So when we go to HCD, this is the program, this is how many units we think, this program will yield, and these are all the things that we're going to do to achieve that. So that's kind of what we're presenting to you this evening. So the next topic is the site's inventory. I mentioned this earlier. It lives in Appendix C, which is really where the technical analysis is that supports the programs. The site's inventory is usually the table that lists all of your potential housing sites, and then all of the numbers of units that you're projecting to achieve. So in our adopted housing element, we achieved our RENA, which is our regional housing needs allocation, by identifying 25 sites, which included the city-owned properties, using hospitality employee housing, using accessory dwelling units, and then pipeline projects, which were projects that were either in review or entitled. And combined, that totaled 410 units. It included the number of affordable units that we needed to meet our RENA, and we got that adopted. In the proposed sites inventory, we are suggesting that our RENA can be achieved with only 12 sites, which do not include the city-owned sites. more accessory dwelling units, the same pipeline projects, the hotel key program that you heard from Tim Toomey this evening, the mixed income incentive program, or MIP, that you heard from Hans Buder, the live work program that you also heard from Hans, and the church program. Right now, that totals about 469 units. These are all estimates, and as we go through the review process with the state, this is subject to change. I do also want to note that it is good for us to have a little bit of a buffer. So even though our RENA is 349, our adopted housing element has 410, we do want a little bit of a buffer in there so that if a site that we identified doesn't redevelop as we had projected, we still have something to fall back on so that we don't become deficient with our RENA. And again, this breakdown ensures that the affordable housing is dispersed and not concentrated. So I'm going to try to go through these other revisions quickly because I feel like we've been talking for quite a bit at this point. In the draft that you're seeing right now, one of the programs was accidentally deleted, and that's our local universal design standards. We are going to put that back in the next set of revisions. The overnight visitor accommodation, which is the kind of the hotel employee housing program, I just wanted to note that we did retain this program, but it's no longer for RENA credit. And I think Tim mentioned this as well. In the adopted housing element, we got RENA credit for this program, but the state said if the program doesn't produce by mid-cycle, then we had to start requiring the hotels to do this. And so we've made a decision that instead of requiring this to happen, we're going to remove it from the RENA requirement. But we want to keep the program because we know there's some interest and we want to encourage the hotels to continue to pursue it. The programs that we have deleted are the city-owned sites, which again were the Sunset Center and Vista Lobos, amending the A2 zoning district, which is the Sunset Center site. So because those are no longer in the site's inventory, we don't need those programs. We're also proposing to delete the SB 10 program because we're no longer using those sites in our sites inventory as well. Some really quick formatting changes. We're proposing to shift sort of the meat of the program as far as the objectives timeframe to follow the title. So that's up front and it's the first thing you see. You may have noticed that the quantified objectives is not filled out in this draft. That is something that will come later. One thing that we have done in this draft is we've updated a lot of our timeframes. So where we had December 2024 deadlines, because that has passed, we've updated those timeframes to reflect a more realistic timeframe for where we're at with the amendment. We've also removed these scattered quotes. And so just sort of in conclusion, some takeaways. Remember, this is an early draft, not etched in stone. We really want to get some feedback. We want to hear, comments, questions. The substance of the revisions really do focus on the 5 strategies and the site's inventory. We do have the other proposed revisions. We're, looking for feedback on all of it. Please don't rely so much on the program numbers. They are subject to change as we continue to kind of refine this. So if we maybe refer to things by the title, that might be easier as we go forward because the numbering may change. And the number of units each program is estimated to yield, which I sort of highlighted in those large purple numbers, may also change based on our review with HCD. but that's where we're at right now as far as what we're projecting, what we think these programs will yield. And it's more than enough to remove the city-owned sites from the site's inventory. So with that, we welcome any comments, questions, and
Marnie,
feedback.
I want to ask a question going back to the question that Commissioner Locke had. If I built an ADU and consistently rented it under market for access to low-income applicants, does that count toward our arena, or does it actually have to be officially deed restricted?
So if we were able to create a program in which to verify that, we absolutely could. We just need to have a program in place that we could show the state that we have this program, we do income verification, this is a low-income unit.
And is that specified in our plan or not?
In our housing element?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But under the ADU program, I mean, that could easily be something that we pursue.
I would include it in your housing element because clearly if you can do that without doing deed restrictions, I mean, my experience is nobody wants a deed restriction.
Exactly.
So if there's a way to get low-income credit for something, by all means, make that happen and put it in there for the state so they can see it as well.
Commissioner Alburn, do you have a comment or a question? Yeah, why don't we do the public first before the commissioners dive into this. So this time I'm going to invite the public to come up and ask any questions or comments, make any comments they have.
Hi, my name is Julia Christopher. I am a local resident renter, not owner, as well as a small business owner. I have Photography West Gallery, second generation. My mom opened the gallery in 1980. She was one of the first single women in America to be approved for an SBA startup loan, had nothing, completely self-made. So, you know, I'm part of the American dream, part of Carmel history. My grandmother was the first female police officer on the Monterey Peninsula, so go girls. Anyways, I'm here to represent the people who need the housing. There was a document issued April 23rd, 2025 from the Department of Housing from Gavin Newsom. Monterey County, I would like to give you some numbers. Our medium income is $104,500. Low income single person, and I am happy to forward this document to you, $81,000. Couple, 2 people, $92,600. 3 people, so say a family of 3 with 1 child, $104,150. That's low income. Very low income is $50,600. That's very low. Moderate is $87,800, which is, I can say, pretty much every employee of small business owners in the Carmel area. I have not been able to find an employee. I had one applicant who lived in Hollister. I mean, it's because they can't afford to live here. I mean, there's no place for them to live, and they would be commuting all the way from Hollister. My one employee who does work for me full-time she's 64. She owns her home in Marina, and she's like, there is absolutely no way I could work for you if I didn't already own my home. I just bumped into a neighbor. His 3 neighbors just passed away. Their kids were just forced to sell their homes due to Prop 19. I don't think a lot of people in the area understand what happened with Prop 19. So we get a $1 million exemption now, even if it's our primary residence, and then we have to pay property taxes on that. Again, for the people who, you know, bought their house for $150,000 and they're now $4 million, that's a big hit to the kids, and we're all being forced to sell. And he informed me that the 3 people who bought those homes are now doing vacation rentals. So I am here to advocate on behalf of saving Carmel by providing long-term, affordable, not, I feel like a lot of people are skewed as to who's actually going to be inhabiting these affordable rentals. And they're your small business community, and they're the people who work in them. They're not, they're us. So we, and my friends and I plan on bringing quite a few artists and people, members of the community to the city council meeting on the 20th, so that you can meet the people who need the affordable housing. The other reason I'm standing up here is because there has been a massive outcry regarding parking. And I really would like to thank the AHA committee for all of their hard work, because they've done an amazing job. I do have some concerns along with you, it sounds like, in regards to the hotels and the incentive there. But in the meantime, I wanted to present a proposal that fixes our parking issue as well as some of the affordable housing issues. I will just give it to you. These are blueprints and something that was proposed back in October 2023. All I ask is that you review it. It is for Sunset Center. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. It will provide 205 underground parking places as well as 28 affordable housing units, in addition to artists and residents housing, a new community center, potential museum. I mean, it would really add to the character and charm of the town and add parking, and this is an immediate, sure fix. And you have the power to approve it. I know there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape, but it's an emergency situation. People don't have a place to live. We need help. And so I appreciate you taking the time to review that. It really means a lot to us. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, any other members of the public? So nobody in the chambers? Any hands up online? Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the commissioners for their comments. Commissioner Alburn, you want to start? Alburn?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Marnie for all of your work, and to all the members of the committee. I had the privilege of being a very, very, very small part of this AHA committee, and it just can't go without saying the dedication and the persistence, and in so many ways the innovation that the members of the committee have brought to this dedicated work. I know that there will continue to be questions, and I'm certain that you will find that the committee has vetted this in so many different ways that it's going to be a very successful program for our town.
Thank you. Let's see, Commissioner Allen, would you like to give your comments?
So as I said in the last public meeting that we had on this, I really am in full support of the ideas, and I love the fact that the community is coming together to really create some viable solutions that we can move forward with, and so this has my full support.
Thank you. Commissioner Locke?
Yeah, sure. Well, I continue to be concerned about deed restrictions and affordable housing, so I'm going to just continue to say that. I think the concept of counting and having a program must be pursued. I appreciate the comments that were made and the work that has been done, tremendous amount of work, and I think you guys should be very proud of yourselves because it shows how much was done. Other things, I do want to talk about water briefly, since I know it's a big one. So right now, the city does not have a, quote, great constraint, quote, due to the lack of water. Water for new projects is available today from the city's allocation. The constraint is only on the installation of new water meters due to the cease and desist order against Cal-Am. properties with water meters that have existing water meters are able to move forward with residential projects during the moratorium by using inline or sub-meters. So there's really the only properties right now that are constrained are properties that don't have a water meter and are relying on water from the city's allocation to be able to build. Multifamily housing of 4 or more units can permanently sub-meter, so there's no requirement to ever have to put in a CalAm meter when the moratorium is lifted. ADUs can sub-meter, and all other projects can sub-meter temporarily during the moratorium as long as they can't be sold off. There's no reason that most of the housing proposals should not be able to literally begin tomorrow. Most ADUs result in a very, very small amount of water, less than 5/100ths of an acre-foot of water. And that would be a debit to an allocation. And that's primarily because of the availability of on-site credit from demolition of an existing use. And that goes also to another point I want to make is there's been concern that there's not enough water for all these projects. And in doing the estimates for the RHNA numbers, the amount of on-site credit that would be available to offset new uses was not really taken into consideration. The allocation of water that was made by the Water Management District on March 1st should supply enough water for 25 years for development in the city of Carmel. And that water, should we suddenly find that we're meeting all of our RHNA numbers and we've got more construction that we need and we need more water, there is plenty of water left for future allocations to the cities. So that should not be considered a constraint. The city has 16 acre-feet of water right now, actually a little more than that, because there's 2.5 acre-feet that are remaining from the last allocation of 20 acre-feet in 1993. Clearly, growth is not going to occur at a breakneck pace. If additional water is needed, as I just said, the district has clearly indicated that additional water will be available. So I strongly urge the city to move forward with releasing water for projects that will take time to complete. The allocation that was released March 1st was from the Pure Water Monterey Expansion Project, which is expected to be online and functional in the 4th quarter of this year. Right now, the cities can release that water for projects that won't be completed until the end of the year. So we could theoretically be building some of these projects as we speak. And there's no reason to hold back and call water a constraint. Another thing that I just wanted to point out is that it occurred to me today in discussions with some people that I know that there are restrictions in some cases where people who had a single bathroom added a second bathroom to their home using what we call a second bathroom protocol, where it's free water basically. So it didn't debit the jurisdiction's allocation. And in considering future release of water from the city's allocation, you might want to consider allowing those people to actually permit that second bathroom so that it becomes something that they could use a credit for. So, and I'm happy to talk with staff anytime about this stuff. But I really think that the city should not use that as an excuse right now, that we need to move forward with releasing the water and not making it just available for these specific projects, because I think you're going to see our whole city would benefit from actually having the availability now. And we might consider not granting large amounts for a project if it's a house that wants 15 bathrooms, but for small projects we could be moving forward. So just recommend that. I do have a number of little comments, and I put them all in a paper that I will give to you so you can go look through it, and I'm not going to spend my time on it. Thanks. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Karapetkoff, your comments.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about water. That's for sure. So the last time we discussed the housing element, it was very abstract, and a lot of the concepts were difficult to really internalize, basically. Now that we have some specific examples and all this research that was done and the community working on it, I think everything becomes much more real, much more personal as well. So now we have a list of specific sites, feedback, numbers, conversations with particular stakeholders. I think that's much more realistic understanding of how we can make it work. I learned a lot from the presentation. Hans talked about the two different commercial districts that we have. That's great to know that we actually have two. I thought we have one, but now I understand that there are two. So that's important. You know, when you segment the problem, when you have more specific information about the profile, you can make much smarter decisions than if you look at the whole thing as one. So the whole idea of using this less expensive commercial areas and converting them to work-life areas is, I think, it's wonderful. That would definitely help us, bring life into these corners of the commercial district. So when I was taking notes about the whole conversation, I think the kind of the tagline was efficiencies, finding efficiencies in town, efficiencies in the way we use our commercial space, efficiencies in the way we use ADUs, also efficiencies around using keys and converting hotels into residential units. I think that is the one that requires a little bit more discussion and better understanding, because it sounds like a business plan. It has a business component in it that we need to understand much better. But the idea itself to take an underperforming hotel and convert it into partially or entirely into a residential unit is intuitively makes sense. So I think this is a great approach as well. So yeah, I think in general it is much easier to understand how we can achieve that goal following the latest update. And thank you, Marnie, for the work you did, and obviously the community got engaged. I didn't realize that we had so much engagement and so much work between the previous review and today. Yeah, looking forward to seeing these ideas become even crisper. And I would also want to hear, if it's possible, to find any success stories or any other towns having tried this and how it worked. That is always kind of a success stories, references is always something I like to do. And if there's anything that you can share with us, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Karapetka. A couple things I want to say. First of all, I think the work of the AHA committee has been amazing. I like the fact that it's diversified. I like the fact that it's specific. I'm really impressed with the potential for the live-work downtown. I think that could be amazing. And the reason why I'm impressed by that is because it's going to create a more diverse community. What's happening to this community with this escalation of real estate and happening in the whole state is it's just stratifying communities. And communities like ours, which are small, and all of the real estate is so expensive, it's hollowing us out. We've got second home ownerships. We've got houses that aren't affordable. We don't have young families. We have a really old demographic, and that's going to destroy us. It's going to destroy us. And to have this continued appreciation of real estate, it's going to really destroy this whole town. Everything that we think we're about historically is going to change because of that. So affordability is key. If we don't have affordability here, we're not going to survive as a community at all. So that has got to be the focus. And now here's a big mistake that I see in this program. I know it was a big motivation for the AHA community. You're taking out, the city properties. Why? I don't get it. I mean, there's a potential there. Those are properties that the city can actually control what happens. Everything else, you're depending on other individuals. I question just one aspect of it with the conversion of the hotel rooms. But, we're depending on all these others individuals to do this. We're creating a lot of incentives, and that's great. And as Commissioner Locke talked about water, we need water. Water creates a restriction. Restrictions in the marketplace create disturbances in price. You get higher prices. That's what happens. That's what's causing, the affordability problem. It's one of the problems. The other is just the amount of housing we need and we don't have, which is an outcome of the downturn that happened in 2008. I'm in the construction industry. I know what happened. It destroyed the construction industry, And it took years for it to come back, and it never really has come back. Small builders are gone. All you have now is left these big builders, and Carmel doesn't have big builders. We don't have real estate. We don't have that to do that. So I think it's a big mistake that we're taking out the Sunset Center and the other properties. Those need to be in there too. We need a broader mix, more diversification, opportunities. This is about opportunities. We have a wish list here. I mean, we all know that it's going to change. Some of it's going to happen. We're going to meet some of the goals. Otherwise, we're not going to meet the goals. That's reality. So we need to have as many opportunities in there. And when you first presented the first housing element, you put the city properties in there, and your reason said because you said you have some control over it. So and I mean, I know that some members of the public talked about having this concentration of a certain economic demographic, but with good planning, we've got a project here presented tonight from one of the speakers talking about at Sunset Center, where you could have, set all types of goals and target different types of opportunities. I read about a project recently that was built in Montana. It was a public-private project. They built, I think, 20 or 25 affordable units. They had a mix of other types they had a cultural center. They had workshop areas where artists could come in and produce products, and they could sell in the community. They had a place there for them to sell it. It was really addressed a lot of creative ideas and presented opportunities for the community, and that's what we need to do. So it's a big mistake taking out the public properties. So I think there needs to be more discussion about that. And what are we getting here? Yeah, come on up. You want me to give me this?
No, I would never do that, sir.
Am I getting on my high horse?
I don't have easy access to a microphone anymore. So I just want to speak to that point, and because I think what the point that you're making, sir, is a good one that we want to explore and make open every opportunity that exists. I think there's an important delineation to make, though, that when the city-owned sites are in the housing element, that's a promise to the state that we are going to do something very specific. Taking them out of the housing element doesn't preclude something from happening on those sites. So for example, the document that was just handed out to you, I think I know which one it is. I didn't see it, but if somebody were to come forward with a project and the city council said, we'd like to explore that, remember that the Sunset Center site has been a conversation of redevelopment for 20-ish years. There's been numerous projects. Commissioner Locke said more. It probably is more. So that doesn't, taking it out of and this is what I'm going with is, this would maybe be one of your suggestions to the city council when we get there at the joint meeting, is to just not forget about the city sites if and when a good opportunity comes along. But the reason for taking them out of the housing element is we're not committing to a specific time frame. So what was in the housing element was we would have an RFP on the street for some sort of development project by December of this year. And I think that was the impetus for this amendment, was not to say we're not going to develop those city-owned sites, because we still do retain control of them, but we want to be a little more in control of our own destiny with respect to what happens on those city-owned sites. That's only food for thought. Again, you're making your recommendation to city council, but I wanted to put a little bit
right. Mine's a recommendation. I understand that if you make a commitment, there could be negative repercussions if you don't meet that commitment. And obviously, if you have a very short time frame to operate or provide a project, that may be unrealistic. Particularly something which addresses a lot of different uses. So I understand that, but I still think that we need to. Even if it's not in there, there needs to be an active exploration of that. And I'm afraid that because of the great work that the AHA committee has done, that the focus is going to be pulled away from that. Also, there was a lot of negative comment about using those city sites during the first review of the housing element. And I'm just pushing back on that. I pushed back on it then, I'm pushing back on it now. I'm not suggesting that we get into situations which could be negative for us or could be set up penalties or so forth. But we need to have a broad focus here, as broad as focus as we can. So that's my only comments. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Marnie, what is the expectations for the 20th? What do you see our role being, and what are you hoping to get out of that?
So it's a joint City Council Planning Commission meeting. So it's another opportunity for both bodies to receive a presentation on this content, to receive public input, and to give feedback to staff so that we can incorporate any revisions, make any refinements. Your comments on water, kind of clean up that language about, whether water is in fact a constraint anymore. So it's really kind of that kind of format for before we submit to the state. So we just want to make sure that, our policymakers and our decision makers, that they have their eyes on the document, that you see what we're going to be sharing with the state, and that we get your feedback on it before we submit it.
So since I'll be unable to attend that meeting, I do want to just share that I think you've done a fantastic job, Marnie, and I really appreciate you continuing to work on this and continuing to look at it and continuing to understand what the overall housing element needs in order to be both effective and also fulfill our commitments. So thank you very much. And again, I just want to reiterate that since you've assured me that the state has had eyes on this, that our consultant has been working closely with us, and that you feel good about it, I'm in full support of it.
Okay, this time I'd like to move on to the other order of business that we have.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
IT staff has notified us that they're currently experiencing some kind of audio issues, and that they need to reboot the system. So I'd recommend entertaining a break at this time to allow them to do that.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we're having technical difficulties, so we'll take 10 minutes, 15 minutes? We'll reconvene at 6:10. We'll see if we're online by then. It's not that long of a document, but if we get into a lot of discussion, I might several ideas.
No, you can send to the next conversation.
Yeah. It's empty. Oh, yeah, I wasn't trying to ask any questions. Yeah, I'm just the next couple of weeks are going to be kind of bad. We've got this joint meeting. I've also got but if you had, I was looking there where I couldn't see from a breakdown. Maybe it's there we never see it. But basically,
How are you?
the key price is the owner of the present property has the key price. That's part of the equity. And when they sell the property, when it transfers, they're going to transfer it at market rate. So the developer has bought the property. So if he holds on to it for a while, and the price goes up, it's not like the tax cap that we're not in New York. We're buying and holding it. But then Uber came along and all of a sudden, boom. Not that I'm the other point I'm making about water restriction is an artificial water control. And because we have a cap on the number of hotels, that's an artificial restriction. So that's, and I don't see that being changed by some force. Yeah, it would have to be changed legislatively. We also require so that artificial special restrictions there in place. Thanks for digging into it. So the ceiling, it's not like a market space. They're torn up just real quick of the present property.
Vineyard Rock.
So where we're looking at is like.
I know it was marked at. Good job. Nancy, amazing.
Testing. 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 1, 2, 3.
Is this on? Could you guys just sit down so we can get going again? Is it on? It's on now. Okay.
I didn't mean to take it from you.
That's great.
What'd you lose, Tim?
Get an agenda back up here. Lost my agenda now. Okay, we're gonna re-adjourn the meeting. Everybody please sit down. We have to do the roll call again, so could you please do roll call?
See, Commissioner Alborn?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Petkoff?
Here.
Commissioner Locke?
Here.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, here. Okay. Before we were adjourned, now we are going to, orders of business, we're going to receive the presentation on findings, evidence, and conditions of approval in the decision-making process. Oh, did we get back online?
We did.
Okay, good. So we're up and running. All right.
Audio's working
We
good.
can proceed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair LePage, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Anna Jeanette, Director of Community Planning and Building. Here to present on a refresher training on findings, evidence, and conditions of approval. Again, today's training focuses on the Planning Commission's role as acting as a quasi-judicial body that makes decisions on discretionary permits. Findings provide the written documentation explaining the reasons and justifications for the hearing body's action. Findings cannot be conclusionary statements. They have to be supported by actual factual evidence. And conditions of approval are a part of a permit once adopted. So this slide, I'll just walk you through certain type of findings that are typically made on discretionary permits. Staff is also working on a draft resolution template that better outlines the findings and the evidence that makes it easier for the decision makers and members of the public to understand exactly how the Planning Commission came to a decision. So the slide format may change, but the intent is to clearly identify what the finding is and then have sub-bullets of what the evidence is. So process is generally found in your resolution in the form as whereas. This just breaks it out and all findings are consistent. The code doesn't necessarily or specifically require the Planning Commission make a finding, but the code does require discretionary permits, depending on what they are, follow a certain process. So this just shows that the proper process had occurred. Next finding would be consistency. Is this project consistent with the general plan, the local coastal program, the Carmel-by-the-Sea municipal code? So again, same process or same thought or intent. The finding is very clear, and the evidence should be clear supporting that statement. The municipal code also provides very specific findings based on the permit type or type of use. So this is an example of the findings that would have to be made for a concept review. Findings clear points to the code where each individual finding is laid out, and then the evidence, again, should be what's supporting it. So in terms of evidence, evidence could be a wealth of things. The project plans, like the site plan, have they maintained proper distance from the trees? Have they maintained the required or are they meeting the requirement for site coverage and things like that. Additional information is typically on the plans that illustrates projects' consistency. Do they meet the yard setbacks, locations of buildings and things like that. Other evidence could be the technical reports that are submitted. An archaeological report we have on file says that there are no known resources on site, therefore it's consistent with our code. Site visits, that could be part of the evidence. Oftentimes, through a track 2 design process, the applicant and the staff will work together and may result in modifications to the plan to ensure that the plan is now consistent with the code. That could be a form of evidence. Also, code requirements like proper drainage, site control, and things like that could be evidence. So conditions of approval, I would say there are probably 3 main buckets. There are standard conditions that staff recommends being incorporated within project approval. These are things that not only help anyone who is looking at the project understand what the later requirements would be, but it also helps the applicant. Reminds them your permit is only good for a certain amount of time. Your permit only covers what we're approving and not anything beyond that, and things like that. There are also special conditions that are added. These could be anywhere between requiring a construction management plan, prohibiting the use of copper gutters and downspouts. Special conditions could also be conditions of approval that are exactions. That is, our code requires you to ensure there's public access. In order for you to provide that public access, and in order for us to ensure that occurs, a condition of approval would be we would require a dedication of a access easement. It could be a visual, and it could be a vertical access. Like someone needs to get to the beach from the first public road. Other exactions could be things like you have to pay traffic mitigation fees, or you have to pay school fees. Mitigation measures, if they are identified in a CEQA document, those have to be applied as conditions of approval. So that's why that's included in the list. So I spoke a little bit about exactions. So there's a careful balance that the Planning Commission or any decision maker needs to have when imposing exactions on a private property or a property owner. And so a key, there was a foundational test. It's called the Nolan and Dolan test. And the case law really talks about 2 main components. There has to be an essential nexus for adding a condition. You require this access easement because there is a vacant parcel, there's no access, and now they're going to develop it with a single-family residence. Do you have a clear essential nexus to require them to do so? There's also rough proportionality. Well, not only do I want you to dedicate access on your property, I want you to pave the access from your property to the beach, and then the existing access 2 miles up the road, I want you to pave the whole thing. Is that roughly proportionate to the impact of the particular development? So Nolan, there was the Nolans owned property, beachfront property in Ventura. There was an existing small bungalow, a little bit over 5,000 square feet. They wanted to demolish it and rebuild it with a 3-bedroom house. So the Coastal Commission said that because your house will be bigger, there's going to be this perceived blocking of public access to the beach. If you can't see the beach, you're probably not going to know that you're able to walk to the beach because the house is blocking it. There was a public beach on one side and another public beach on the other side, and then Nolan's property was right down the middle. So what they said is, we want you to dedicate lateral access so people can walk from one public beach to the other public beach on the beach fronting your property. Went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court held that you cannot tie the requirement of providing vertical access from a public member on a public beach needing to go across your property to get to another public beach. You cannot tie that with the perceived blocking of a visual access from the roadway. Like the two, they don't compare. So that's where Nexus was born. Then a few years later, in I think 1994, Miss Dolan owned a property in Oregon. She had a hardware store that was about like 9,000 square feet. Her lot, there was a Fallon Creek that had, the floodplain was like on a southwest corner, and I believe it bounded the western portion of her property. What she wanted to do was expand the hardware store to more than double the size. I think it was, or maybe it was less. It was like 13,000 square feet, and then pave a gravel parking lot and install 39 spaces. So their planning commission said, okay, well, if you do that, we want you to dedicate all the areas on your property that are in the 100-year floodplain for some future stormwater improvements. We also, in addition to that, want you to dedicate a 15-foot strip of land to allow bike and ped access. We have this future connectivity plan, and this will fall within it. The Planning Commission argued you're increasing the impervious surfaces, so we need to have proper drainage. And with the additional square feet, you're more than likely going to have more traffic. So this went up to the Supreme Court. They also found that although there was an essential nexus, what they were asking for was an overreach, and it wasn't proportional to the actual impact the development would have. So key takeaways, planning commissioner's role, and it's also staff's role. We are required, or it's our responsibility, to uphold and defend the land use laws of the city of Carmel. So in doing so, having a really good administrative record helps us do so if a project were to unfortunately go into litigation. Having proper findings and evidence and having things clearly laid out all helps. Staying within our police powers that we have and not overreaching, that also helps. And then again, I've been working with our planning staff and going through an updated resolution template. I hope we can roll it out soon, but just know that that's coming. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions for the director?
I do. So I really appreciate this because I actually noticed a difference with the homework this time when it's broken out into findings and evidence, and so I appreciate that. The one thing that I do want to talk about a little bit is we've had in the current state this situation where the staff makes a recommendation. I don't know where that started, but I'd like to kind of understand if that's necessary, because my view is if they did not make a recommendation, that we would get more information and just the facts. it might just be me, but sometimes it's a little bit awkward when the staff makes a recommendation and then I don't want to go with that. And so it seems like if they didn't make recommendations, that we would have like an open conversation around strictly going with facts, and it wasn't like the staff was taking a side. I don't know how the staff feels, but it seems like it would take the burden off of the staff if we went with that. And then the other thing is that I believe that it would also allow the applicant to be more informed around what the regulations and any of our guidelines are in order for them to present their projects. And so so that was just something that I wanted to bring up, because I have had instances as we've gone through where that has, I don't know if it's prohibited a richer conversation or if it's just been kind of a challenge.
Thanks, through the chair. That is a great question. And so as you're speaking, like thousands of thoughts just like popped into my brain. So staff making a recommendation is very typical and it's very common. Staff is the person who's working with the applicant at a more intimate level and going through the code and really working through it. So staff's recommendation should be solely based on fact and not on taking a particular side. Is this consistent? Does it meet all the guidelines? And things like that. So the way a resolution is laid out, it should inform the hearing body that all of this has been looked at and it does meet it. That being said, if the commission were not to agree, and I've been, experienced this through a different planning commission, if the planning commissioners wanted specific language to be included in an evidence, that should always be part of your motion. Or if the commission disagreed with certain evidence, like the because is not genuine, or this evidence doesn't meet this finding, or it doesn't support this finding, then the commission should also, as part of the motion, strike certain that language out. If staff were not to make a recommendation and only teed up facts of the case, then the commission would have to adopt a resolution of intent, tell staff, all of this evidence, I need you to add this to finding 1, I need this on finding 2, I need all these other findings that have to be made. And our code, the way it is beautifully written, all of these, there are findings all over the place. So there's a chance things could be missed if that were the case. Then staff would have to return back to the Planning Commission. You would then have to review that resolution and then approve it at a later date. So then it would add another hearing to that. But I think, based off your comment, I think that a change on how the resolution is written versus how the staff report is written, that will be much more clear. The staff report will not have as much technical information, and it should be any member of the public should be able to pick up the staff report and understand what's happening. This is what the project is, this is where it's located, these were the issues that were identified, and these are how these issues were either addressed or not addressed. And then the resolution is really the technical document that goes along with it.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment which relates to this. A few years ago, there was a recommendation that discussions of a project would not start until a resolution was made. And we, typically in the staff report, there is a resolution by staff, which is based upon the findings they make either to support or not to support the particular application. And so it was presented to the Planning Commission at that time that we should have a resolution first. So in other words, we would start the discussion with one of the commissioners would make a resolution, it would be seconded, and then they start the discussion there. Now, in the course of that, there would be, the ideas that were based upon the findings, the evidence, there could be substitute resolutions. And a substitute resolution would always become take the first position as long as it got a second. If it doesn't get a second, then it doesn't take the first position. So it is a way, it's a procedural way of discussing a project in the context of findings and evidence. The Planning Commission at that time decided not to do that procedurally. It was just a procedural thing. We decided not to do it because of what you're saying. We didn't want to start from what was a perceived position of a decision, although it really wasn't because there hadn't been a vote on the resolution. So we decided procedurally not to do that. And so now we do it the way we do it. But having said that, what the director is saying, if we didn't have a position by staff and a resolution, then we'd have to have another meeting. So it would really draw things out. So I think for me, it gets back to that meeting where we decided not to have, to not start with a resolution. I think it provided a more open conversation, which I think was the point you were trying to make. Rather than starting at a position that had an appearance of bias or preference. So, and I've always kind of wondered about that position, that decision we made or not. If you go to the Coastal Commission, they don't start a discussion until there's a resolution. They don't even start it. Yeah, there's got to be a resolution with a second, or there's no discussion. So and that's how they do it. And a lot of review bodies do it that way. So I don't know what the director's experience has been.
I would not.
But Coastal still has a staff recommendation.
They have staff, and staff makes a recommendation with a resolution. But the commissioners the first thing they do is they take that resolution and they make they make a motion. They have a second, then they start the discussion. And as I said, then they have a process of substitute motions, which can happen, if one of the commissioners believes that the evidence, if evidence is revealed during the process, then the motion can change. The conditions of the motion can change, but you constantly have to make an updated motion, has to be a second for it to take priority position.
Can I comment?
Go ahead.
So I'm actually supportive of the current way, which has actually been what I've been doing for 37 years. So, and I think it streamlines the process. You don't have to go with staff's recommendation, and I think that's the main thing is what they're laying out is the facts as they have done the research, which they have done far more research, and there's far more background that goes on that we don't necessarily know about. And so I trust that they have the information when they come forward and they provide us with draft findings and conditions. And we add our own conditions if we feel like there's something that needs to be added to it, and we can always disagree with staff. So I guess that's...
Yeah. Could it be positioned as evidence or findings versus a recommendation?
Well, any recommendation made has to have findings and evidence.
Yeah, right.
So, if you as a commissioner have, if during the course of public comment or presentation by the applicant, other evidence is presented, that evidence has to be judged in the context of the land use documents, and that's where the consistency. The word was consistency. Consistency with the land use documents.
Right.
The evidence has to be consistent with the land use documents in order to make a finding of supporting it. If there isn't a consistency, then you can't support it.
Then you have to amend.
And I think the whole point of this conversation is all the decisions that we make, have to be supported by the land use documents, findings either for or against.
Exactly.
The problem that we have many times, and the problem that I struggle with, and I think the public struggles with, is subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
We have ordinances which are supposedly not supposed to be subject, although there is interpretation involved with those. But if it says you've got a 15-foot front setback, That's it, you know. But if we're talking about the color of a house or the character of a neighborhood, that's subjective. And we've had people in the context of applications talk about good taste. What is that? How can we make decisions based upon taste? We can't. That's an individual thing. And I'm in no position to challenge your taste about whatever you feel is great, then, or, you know, so that's, you know, I think in the working towards consistency with findings is then we get closer to objectivity. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion tonight, actually in the housing element, about objectivity.
Yeah.
And that's something that the state is working towards. They want to remove this subjective element.
Right.
Because it acts as a restriction, because it's just this sort of moving target.
It's a barrier.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So.
May I?
Go ahead.
I'm wondering, Erin, if it might feel different if instead of using the phrase staff recommendation, if we looked at it as a staff conclusion. I tend to think of them almost like a subtotal, you know, that the staff has looked through has done their research and their compare and contrast the project with all of the guidelines and regulations of the city. And what they're giving to us is sort of a subtotal of their research. This is what I've got. This is my conclusion based on what I know and what I can see. And so I suppose I've always seen it that way. I wonder if the term recommendation is perhaps not the best one to be using.
Well, the challenge is there's going to have to be a resolution. So you can call it a conclusion or a recommendation, right. But the resolution is going to take a specific position based upon the findings, either to support the project or not. So, I mean, you know, I for myself, I think this, when we decided not to start with a resolution, a motion in a second, that makes for a more open conversation. You know, that was our feeling at the time, and I still feel that way. Although I do understand having a resolution, how it tends to focus the discussion more, and that leads to sometimes more brevity. So.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. It's just something that I've been thinking about over the months that that we sit here, because it almost feels like there are certain sides to this when it's being presented, and being on both sides of it as a resident and as a planning commissioner, I just wanted to bring the question up.
Well, it's a good question, and it's been part of the discussion for a long time. So, any more comments? Or okay, thank you very much, Director.
Okay, there will be a
test
next planning commission. Right. I want you to explain Nolan and Dolan to me.
I'm gonna get my screen back up here. Yeah, I hate this. Screensavers are a nightmare. Okay, that brings us to the public hearings, and I feel sorry for the Candy Shack people. I told them to be here at 4 o'clock. I think they left. Anyway, that's the first item on the public hearing tonight is a use permit. It's use permit 25090. It's application for new business, the Sea Shack Candy Company. We have staff report, please.
Just one moment. You're correct. Our applicants were with us. They had to go. I believe he said he's a lacrosse coach and had a commitment. All right, so switching from housing and findings to a sweet shop, I'll be presenting the Sea Shack Candy Co. to you. The proposed business will be located at San Carlos between Ocean and 7th in Carmel Square, Unit 2, previously occupied by an art gallery. And the Sea Shack Candy Co. will be a Scandinavian sweet shop with a focus on imported Swedish candies. Here are a few photos of the current space, which you had the opportunity to tour today. A quick description of the product and branding. I did look up how to say these words earlier today, but that was hours ago, and I don't want to mess it up. But they're proposing a sweet shop with like a self-serve pick and mix selection, as well as prepackaged candies. There will be domestic candies as well, but the focus is Scandinavian candies. So again, both packaged and self-serve. I'm just going to go back to, because there's this Swedish tradition of Saturday sweets, and of course I had to research it this morning. It was a government initiative in Sweden in the 1950s. They wanted people to eat less candy so their dental health was better, so they said just keep it to one day a week, Saturdays. So here in America, we want it every day, but that's how the Saturday sweet term came about, and it's just a widespread, it's a part of Swedish tradition. So here's kind of their inspiration board, some of their colors. Our applicants are locals, they've raised their family here, and the name of their home is Sea Shack, hence the inspiration for the business name. As you saw today, it's a small store, maybe 275 square feet. They are proposing very minimal interior changes and no exterior changes. So what they're proposing doesn't even require a building permit. They'll have a new cash wrap station, shelving on the walls, and fresh paint. There's already a small rear storage area with a sink that's already existing. There will be no seats, and then the proposed hours of operation, weekdays 11 to 7, weekends 11 to 9. Here's just a floor plan showing that small commercial space with even smaller storage space in back, and their proposed colors. There will be on-site garbage provided, which is one of the requirements, as well as on-site restrooms in the shared Carmel Square courtyard. You can see the site plan there. And then I think Anna said it quite well, that there are just findings everywhere, here and there, in our code and general plan. So in the staff report, there are the findings and evidence in abundance. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but staff did make all of the affirmative findings as necessary and has not placed any special conditions on this project. Here we have our specialty food store findings, as well as just any use permit findings, and then more findings for commercial use permits. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to speak to any of them specifically. And then in terms of environmental review, this use permit is exempt from CEQA. It's an existing commercial facility, and it will still be a commercial facility. And that's it from me. That concludes my presentation. As I said, our applicants were with us. They may still be with us on Zoom, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And staff is good with the hours they're proposing?
Yes.
Okay. All right, questions for staff? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't know if any representative for the applicant is here. They can speak to us at this time. I think we probably torpedoed their evening, their schedule. Seeing nobody coming forward. Any hands up online? Did anybody show up online? Okay. Any members of the public like to make any comments regarding this application? Anybody online? Okay. We have a resolution from staff. I'm going to make a motion that we accept the resolution as per staff with no changes.
A second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapeka?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Item number 7 on the public hearings. This is, are we, Jake, are we going to do this as one presentation, or how are we going to organize this? I was a little confused because there's a lot of the same language and resolution.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Maybe you could start out that way, just getting me up to speed how you want to do this.
I was going to do one single presentation. It was one staff report for all 3 projects because there's just a lot of interplay between the projects. They did have their own individual resolutions, plus the resolution for the lot line adjustment. So
we're going to we have to take the resolutions individually?
Yes.
But you're going to do one staff report?
I'll do one staff report, one presentation, and the last slide actually breaks out the 4 different motions that we would make. Say a motion to adopt resolution labeled attachment 1, like that. So it'll be very simple resolution adoption if you guys choose to adopt them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you start with
setting up some, yeah. So they're setting up material boards and all the fun stuff. I'll have some pictures on the presentation, but let's get on into it. This is the Mission Sisters project. You've seen these before. October 9th, they were approved for concept for Kailea and Ahana, and Hapuna was just approved in March. Just a little process background. There's a preliminary site assessment was completed and sent to the applicants June 14th, 2024. The design concepts, as previously stated, were approved for Kailea and Ahana October 9th, 2024, and for Hapuna March 12th, 2025. This is our final details planning commission meeting today, May 14th. A little bit of background, and I'm going to go quickly because we've seen all these slides. I just want to keep you guys in the loop of everything. The first lot is Hapuna. It's a 4,000 square foot lot that's being proposed to be expanded through the lot line adjustment to 4,150 square feet. They're within their maximum allowed floor area, and they're within the maximum allowed site coverage. And there's an existing and proposed site plan here, and we can return to this slide if you guys have any questions on this. Next is Kailea. That is DS 24208. Similar, was a 4,000 square foot lot, is being expanded as part of the lot line adjustment up to 4,950 square feet. And similarly, it's within its maximum allowed floor area and site coverage. Ahana is the large lot that's giving out the extra square footage to the other 2 as part of the lot line adjustment. So it was 6,000, it's being proposed to be 4,900, and is similarly within the bounds for floor area and site coverage. For the volume studies for all 3 of these, a standard condition between concept and final, they all pass, but I wanted to run through the numbers briefly. For Hapuna, the maximum allowed is about 20,000. They're coming in a little over 13,000, giving that a difference of about 6,700 cubic feet of volume. Kailea was allowed 22,600 cubic feet, is proposed for a little over 21,000, and that's a difference of 1,200 about. And Ahana was allowed a maximum of 23,500, is proposed at 23,200, and that's a difference of about 238. So they all pass volume to varying degrees of closeness. The most recent project that we reviewed was Hapuna at the March meeting, and at that meeting it was requested to have the entry a little bit reduced so that it wasn't such a grand entry, and the applicant made some adjustments that they thought would reduce the grandiose nature of the opening while maintaining the character of the building. So the door was reduced from 8 feet to 6'8", and the windows were reduced by roughly 6 inches. For finished details, we have them up here, and you can see they're laid out there, so you can see them in person. If you want, after the presentation, you're more than welcome to go down and look at them up close. It's going to be shiplap siding. The roof is going to have slate, composite slate with a little bit of metal roof on the edge as the trim of it, and there's going to be a gravel ballast roof at one point. There's spaced wood decking, landscape boulders, wood windows, Stone pavers, we've seen a lot of these before in the previous meetings because we've just been including them. But if you have any questions, we can certainly come back and look at any of these in more detail or in person in more detail. Kailua, similar overall materials, but a different blend and different staining and slightly different siding. The siding is going to be vertical wood board and bat siding with similar sizes between the boards and the bats, a similar composite slate roof, and there's going to be a green roof on this one, yes, on the flat portion, as well as the other materials shown here. If you have any questions, we can come back to this or look at them in person. And Ahana, a similar suite of materials applied in different ways, board and bat siding with thinner bats. Yes, good. I always mix that up. So it's a slightly different ratio than what you saw in Kailua. Similar green roof and the gravel ballast roof. Similar Ipwood decking. There's these wood pavers that we showed at the original concept meeting. Some aluminum windows and doors, boulders as part of the landscaping. There's going to be a concrete fireplace on the exterior, all found to be consistent with our design guidelines. Here is just a quick demonstration of the lot line adjustment. You can see that the blue area shows the new lot lines and the red shows what is existing. So you can see it's just kind of shifting over south would be the direction a little bit. And here's a rendering of all three of them together. You see that the applicant worked to make them of a piece with each other while being distinctly different, so there's not too much homogeneous design between the three of them, so they fit together but aren't too similar. For CEQA analysis, we've had a lot of interested parties talking about CEQA at previous meetings, so I wanted to make sure to break this out for all of these. We recommend that you find that the lot line adjustment is exempt from CEQA under section 15305A, and that none of the exceptions apply. We also recommend that you find that the design studies are exempt because it's a demolition of a rebuild in a single family to replace the existing structure. And so that would be categorically exempt under sections 15302 and 15303, and none of the exceptions applied. A more in-depth analysis of the exceptions was in the staff report, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We have Mr. Valivis online as well, who is with the city's attorneys. And then finally, there was some discussion as to whether these would qualify as one project as opposed to three projects. So we went ahead and did the analysis as if they were one project. They are 3 demos and new builds on single family parcels where there's existing homes. So individually they qualify, but then collectively, the class 3 categorical exemption covers up to 3 single family residences. So even if viewed as one single project, it would still be categorically exempt from CEQA with no exceptions that apply. With that, staff recommends making 4 motions. A motion to adopt the resolution designated as attachment 1, adopt the resolution designated as attachment 2, 3, and 4. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Questions for staff, the commissioners? Question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. The first has to do with maintenance of the living roofs. If a roof in town falls into disrepair, then a neighbor or a member of city staff could see that, and there might be a report and some code compliance to bring that roof back into proper condition. How does that apply to maintaining a living roof?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
It's tricky, similar to many code enforcement cases. These are brought to our attention by reporting from concerned neighbors and residents. So there's not going to be an active effort from the city to follow up on that roof. But if it is determined to be unsafe, then we would require the applicant, or at that point the homeowners, to take steps to make sure that the roof is safe. As to what would qualify for making a green roof unsafe, I'm not positive about that.
Or unsightly, not just unsafe, but because it does have an aesthetic component. And just a curiosity, if we head into several years of drought, how does that impact this roof?
I think similarly, if it wasn't just a safety concern, but more of a public nuisance for being unsightly, it would similarly need to be reported to us by concerned residents or neighbors, as to what would be the best methods for maintaining a roof like that during a drought time. I would defer to the landscape architect with the plans, with the applicant. I assume there's some way to do some drought-resistant planting up there, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, I noticed one of the properties had some steel in their garden structures. I know that we've chosen not to use copper for ecological reasons. How does steel behave over time as it ages? As used in the garden, thinking exposure to water and then down into garden soil.
Another very good question.
Thank you.
I don't know is the true answer, I guess. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any studies or anyone bringing concerns about steel and its runoff or the effects of it leaching into groundwater. I'll have to get back to you on that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. No more questions from the commissioners? All right. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and make their presentation.
Thank you. Maybe we can get a little bit more light, if that's possible. Thank you. That's good. Yeah. And do we have this will work? Okay, and that goes forward and back. It should. Yep. It's not doing anything. Or do the top, or it's not these ones? Let's see. Okay. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby.
Kudos to Shelby.
This is exciting. Well, Chair LePage. Are you ready? It's okay. Chair LePage and Planning Commissioners, I'm Eric Dyer, architect for Lynn Hermley and Craig Collins on these Mission Sisters residences. It's nice to be here at this stage with you all. As we move to discuss the final details of these projects, I wanted to quickly mention my inspiration for these designs. Yes, we held the residential guidelines as touchstone throughout the design process, but the initial feeling of these projects actually comes from my first experiences of Carmel, visiting as a boy, I have to say over 40 years ago, to a little house on the northwest corner of Lincoln and 3rd, a few blocks from the Mission Sisters. It was John Thodis's, the architect's, first house he bought in Carmel. It's no longer there, but it was a small home nestled into the trees and landscape. The inside was red wood with floor-to-ceiling glass with a wood structure between wood structures, which looked out onto this incredible coast live oak stretching out horizontally across the property. I'd never seen anything like those trees as a kid. The house connected to the special landscape that is Carmel. It was simple, informal, unpretentious cabin in the woods, and like so many houses here, it was also board and bat, which we were inspired by here. These types of homes were also, of course, the basis of the design traditions that became the guidelines. And I'll just go to, this was a sample of one of the older houses in Carmel with the board and bat siding. There's a little flat from front,
setback on the site, a detached garage toward the front, and the two-story element toward the back. With the opportunity to design and build 3 homes at once, we took from another Carmel tradition used by such luminaries as Hugh Comstock on Carmel Hill, as you see here, John Koningshofer at Sea and Sand, and Henry Hill at the Three Sisters on Lopez Street. Like Mission Sisters, all these clusters of homes share a stylistic sensibility, but created individually distinct homes connected with landscape. They created a dialogue amongst each other while still being unique. Today, we recently have seen houses designed so successfully by Thomas Hood on Casanova Street, the pine trees on the left. And there's a wonderful example of David Allen Smith's projects of 2 of his houses shown in the book Cottages by the Sea that actually uses shared landscape between them, you see on the right, to help create the architecture. The Mission Sisters are certainly also inspired by the Bay Region tradition of Carmel, which exude simplicity of structure, form, and materials, and integrate discreetly into their sites. Here's some just around town I was able to take. You can see how they're always kind of simple behind the trees, very simple forms, and often board and bat siding. So we're definitely coming out of this tradition. Let's see. At the Mission Sisters, we've discussed in previous meetings the layout, configuration, and massing of each house is driven by their respective topography, trees, and relation to the adjacent neighbors. So unlike, I just use these as an example on Carmel Point, these houses which are all of different styles but are basically cookie cutter copies of each other side by side. What we're doing is very different. Each house has a unique take on historic inspiration of materials as well. So we'll go to Hapuna first. This is the existing house. This is how it's the rendering from the street with Hapuna on the left. And here's the courtyard. Hapuna uses dark stained shiplap horizontal siding. You see here historically from many mid-century homes such as the Henry Hill houses. It has Carmel stone garden walls which also provide accents on the house itself. Stone pavers, Da Vinci slate roofing, and on the small 2-story element. Doors and windows are natural stained wood. And I'll move on to see these if you have a look. Brown chocolate siding, Carmel stone. We have tan gravel ballast for the flat roof portion, and then the stone pavers of this material accents of this lighter wood nicely complement the dark siding. Here's I think we showed this, so I won't spend too much time on that. There's questions of it. Here's some enlarged wall sections and details of how we're putting things together and how the stone and the wood complement each other. And here's some other shows. The larger roof on the top has open wood decking and beams that are expressed. Going on to the middle one, this is Kailea, the existing house. This is the one on the right of this in this rendering, where it actually has a detached garage that is up at the street, which we have moved back from previous October meeting by 2 feet to accommodate the neighbors. But the detached garage really helps the whole idea of how we do this house, because the house is able to be lowered and we're able to step down the house or the site much more easily. Kailea takes the board and batten Carmel tradition with stone boulders, providing some retaining walls as you step down stone steps to the front porch, which has a delightful wood bench with ipe wood. We use local granite here for fireplace and building accents, and most of the roof is actually a living roof integrated in the forest setting. The 2-story element has a differently colored synthetic slate roof. Doors and windows are lighter stained wood to complement with the gray siding you see here. So here's the board and bat style, which is stained to gray, complementary vineyard granite, which is the local rock you see on the beaches and everything. Living room samples, ipe wood for the decking, and some stone paving, which is natural stone. Here's also some wall sections we have showing the complementary wood windows to the gray toned board and bat siding.
Here's some more. It's a little blurry, so I'll move on to the next one. Oops. Oop, did we lose it? Oh, it's just slowed. Okay, sorry. Okay. And this, we're missing the other one. Oops, we're missing the Ahana. So I'll just talk about Ahana differently. I think I did talk about Kailea's detached garage and the need to keep it detached because it is important for the layout of the house and having it lower than the street. The Ahana house, we use a completely different board and bat siding. You can see here with the lighter stained wood, thinner bats, different spacings. The walk and the driveway are done in a wood cobblestone that the landscape architect Marie Goulet found, which is this, which wears well, and it's kind of a natural feeling to it. We use some board and bat concrete on the house, but it's also away from the street. You don't actually see it from the street, and it's exposed to the interior courtyards. And also has living roofs and some flat roofs with tan gravel, which is similar to that. So let's go to here. We work very hard to keep the low profile of the houses along the street frontage, especially. All the building masses closest to the street all maintain almost the minimum plate heights of 8 feet, so just about the minimum you can have for a ceiling height. As I've discussed, it was important to maintain views across the front portion of the properties from one home to the other to view beyond the view, and that starts with David and Young Crab's house to the north as you move down the hill. So those front properties are the flat roofs, so one house above can see over the other ones below. We are very intentional about avoiding any sort of large, grandiose, or formal or symmetrical masses in windows, and inspired by the informal, human-scaled forms of the early Carmel cottages. Each front entry, as you'll notice from these plans, is created from a distinct form scaled to a single door. And this all creates and contributes to the creating of the human scale on the homes. I know we have also addressed the use of glass and glazing within the Bay Region tradition of Carmel, as stated as one of the character-defining elements of the style that's in the Carmel's historic context statement. Glass is used as a space between structural or building mass elements, as opposed to a style which has window openings within a solid, which can be overscaled to the mass. Glass, in this context, actually dematerializes the massiveness of the buildings and acts as a void between solids. And I should mention, to conform to the design guidelines, the glass needs to be used in a way that's authentic and appropriate to the overall architecture of the home, which we've done. However, we did reduce the amount of glazing to the street, and then farther back on the site, away from the street, the designs open up to their respective courtyards, which are offset from each other. To address the concerns expressed by the Commission, we have reduced the front window of the Ahana house by over 12 inches each way and broken it up by using a bay window. The door heights have been reduced to 7 feet, as well as the garage height. The Puna courtyard, as requested, we have reduced the front door. It's now 6'8" in height rather than 8 feet, and also reduced the size of the front window. As you can see, the windows, staying authentic to the style of the home, is created between the stone base and the structural roof form, which actually aligns with other structural elements of the house. We raised the stone plinth and reduced the width of the mullion divider to address and create a smaller window opening here. Kailea is set well below the street, and limited glazing toward the street is also screened by the detached garage. I'll just say, close to conclusion here, that construction is still planning to be done in 1 year and with one contractor used, and we plan to be very cooperative with the neighbors and happy to try to accommodate their concerns. So I would just say that I think I'm ready for any questions, actually. I think that's completing my presentation. I would like to bring up Marie Goulet if there's not, and she could talk briefly about the landscape and answer questions about the green roofs and other questions you may have about that.
Are there any questions for the architect? Okay, thank you.
And yes, I just in conclusion, also, I would like to reserve a little bit of time at the end if necessary, and we do have Cody Phillips from Tony Lombardo's office to address CEQA issues that needs to be brought up as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great.
everyone. Hello again. I know we've shown you a lot of the thought that's gone into the landscape around the Three Sisters from the beginning, but I'll just reiterate a couple of the points. And of course, Eric has done a great job of showing the materials, so I'll focus more on the issues that you've brought up and the planting design. So again, we were really lucky to be able to come in from the very beginning to look at the site, the context where it is, and we like to do this to say what was this before? It was 3 lots in Carmel, and obviously it was part of the Del Monte forest. When you go to the site, you see a lot of remnants of that forest. The forest character is really really intact in the neighborhood. And then when you look at the 3 lots themselves, currently they're 3 small houses with very minimal outdoor landscape spaces. Sorry, 1 second. And then when you take that and you add the existing canopy of oak and pine, you have a forest. You take away the houses and you just have a piece of land that we have an opportunity to enhance. And so we carefully cited each house with many considerations for outdoor living and architecture, and setting the houses into the site slope so that they feel minimal and they're really integrated with the landscape. And then we found these yellow are highlighting the spaces that are indoor-outdoor connections that create these interior-exterior rooms. And instead of dividing these rooms by walls and fences, our approach was to utilize that forest character that was here far before us to create these layering of forest and privacy screens in a more interesting way through garden. And in addition, we tried to stagger these outdoor rooms so that everyone has privacy, sunshine, and a space to spend time. So those were just basic concepts, but then developing the designs themselves, we really treated it like it was one big site by using, a mix of unifying native oak woodland species and natural stone throughout, and other unifying materials, so that when you walk down Mission Street, it really enhances the sense of that forest character. It really improves the experience of your experience as you're walking through the neighborhood, and the right-of-way is included in that effort. So the overall planting concept, this palette that you see here is what we have included on every lot, so that, again, like you see this repeated on all 3 as you walk down the road, similar to how Eric has tried to create unity within the 3, but also distinctly different accents. So in the planting design, we did the same thing here, and in the bottom is a precedent of an oak woodland garden with a healthy understory that's low-lying and transitions from low to medium as you walk through it, and makes it so that the architecture really feels nestled into the forest. For Hapuna, which is the one you see on the left, for specifically that site has a lot of really nice native oaks. It was hard to tell today because there's a lot of other things growing into them. So we're proposing, obviously, keeping those there, using it as an amenity, and creating this woodland path that walks through it, with a palette of purple native iris and coral bells and aqualesia and Monterey manzanita. And I think Eric mentioned stone pavers, stone boulders, rain gardens, and just a simple small gathering space big enough for a small group to enjoy the oak woodland tucked away. For Kailea, we have a very similar matrix, but then with the planting design, we added some tones that complement the color of the
board and bat with yellows and golds and silver foliage, and a layering that provided some screening from the road. And in this site, it features just a very naturalistic pathway to the front door with, again, a nice small wooden deck and bench. And then in the courtyard space, we have a really naturalistic flagstone patio under an existing tree. And in the way backyard is a tiny little native lawn and basically just a native garden. And we've included some proposed upper canopy trees where we have room, since there's more room here. And then for Ahana, because Eric didn't have this plan, you can see that the garage is all the way on the left with the wood pavers that we're proposing just as drive aisles to really minimize our site coverage. These are partially pervious paving, and that is used to get you to the front door very minimally with mulch path to the backyard. And then this design features a bridge that bridges the living space with the bedroom spaces and the living room, which allows for stormwater to go underneath the bridge. So there's a really lush, sort of immersive experience that's created there while also helping to retain stormwater on site. And then again, here we have this small, intimate outdoor room that's surrounded by architecture, so it really feels like you look out at it and it's part of your living space, but it's protected from the neighboring views and the street. And in the backyard, we've provided a really small lawn area with an opportunity for a spa. It's the most private backyard and the biggest one, so we had the opportunity to do that. And then Kailea and Ahana both have proposed small green roofs. They're both considered extensive green roofs, which means they don't have a lot of soil, 6 inches plus or minus of actual soil. And the roof assembly includes some water conserving elements within the construction detailing. So one thing that it includes is these water retaining mats that hold water, whether it's raining or irrigation, for the root zone on the bottom of the soil layer. In addition, our irrigation uses something called an eco mat, which it's your normal like drip irrigation with emitters in line, but it's wrapped in really thick felt, and they're spaced close together, so like 12 inches apart. So when the water turns on, the felt gets filled with water, and then underneath that drain mat is also a retention mat, so it catches anything that falls out of that system. So once the roots are established, which doesn't take long because there's only 6 inches of soil, they have this water reservoir under the soil that's trying to mimic our groundwater situation within a soil profile. In addition, the green roofs they were placed specifically because they would be seen the most. So where we located them for the maximum amount of benefit for the people who live there. So in theory, there's an incentive there to make sure that they look good. But we didn't want them to be a burden on anyone to have to be highly maintained. So the planting palette is featuring really low maintenance native grasses and perennials and wildflowers that should not take more than one visit a month, maybe, depending on your tolerance for maintenance. And we don't know what that will be. So that's the green roofs. And then in terms of this steel, you'd be using steel instead of copper. So copper is actually like a known pesticide. It's used for that specific thing. So it's great that that's being limited here. For the spec that we're using on the steel walls, which are very minimal, they're only used in a couple of places, we're using Corten steel, which is a metal alloy that has surface rust it rusts to a very certain point and then stops. So there isn't this constant rusting and degrading of the steel like you would in a mild steel. So in addition to there being very limited amounts of runoff from rust, it is also naturally occurring in the soil and in the stone around here. So I don't think it's a concern. I think if it was like a junkyard full of rusting things, that should probably be considered. But because of the limited nature, my professional opinion is it shouldn't be a problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Were there any questions? Did she answer your questions? Good. Okay, that's your presentation, team, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to open up to the public. Any comments they have? Anybody from the public like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and your honorable commissioners. Does this thing work? Yeah, there we go. I would like to begin my remarks by saying, predicated on our continued adherence to the concept of Carmel traditions, homes in Carmel continue to be constructed within the historical trend of modest size and massing, employing natural materials and incorporating their landscape settings into significant components of their design. The aesthetic threads connecting them and their predecessors include independence and creativity in working with form and materials, knowledge of the lessons of the past, curiosity about the possibilities of new and different technologies, and a profound respect for the environmental concept. These principles were echoed by noted American architectural historian Louis Mumford in the New Yorker back in 1947. And he was the guy who set up the whole concept of Bay Area regionalism, which curiously enough backdates to the 1880s if we look at the Simple House, Maybeck and all. And what he said was that native and humane form of modernism as a free yet unobstructed expression of the terrain, the climate, and the way of life in California. His cogent description of the architectural form clearly should fit seamlessly into Carmel's concept of the Carmel tradition, as do the small clusters of period residences constructed in the village over time, and should be addressed within the context of the proposed addition of the Mission Sisters grouping that should be recognized as part of this tradition. I've been here 50 years, and I haven't seen a better layout for a piece of property that could be utilized the way it shouldn't be, but it's absolutely stunning. And the people who are doing it are staying very, very close to the traditions of Carmel's concept. Any questions for me on that?
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to come forward? See Mr. Hood's coming forward.
Good afternoon, Thomas Hood. Speaking as a colleague of Eric's, it isn't very often that I have the chance to observe a project that has been analyzed, dissected, and looked at from every possible angle, and at the same time that it holds together when they're done with three pieces that comprise a whole. It just doesn't happen very often. And it has been a real treat to really get to know Eric's design intentions behind this. This is the Bay Area tradition right here. It's this area. You can't improve on it. I mean, he's really got it down. He's got the language down. He mentioned the project I did on pine trees. That one Similar circumstance, we had 4 lots, we converted to 3. But what I built on there was the tradition of the simple gabled buildings. Most of the cabins were about 16 feet by 20 feet. And I used that as a module to do clusters of gabled buildings, right? And they're all 1 story from the street. That was my take on that neighborhood. Eric's approach here is within the scale of the existing houses around. He's not blocking views, but he's creating a cohesive language of 3 buildings that all play against one another while very quietly sitting back from the street. It's a beautiful project. And I really hope that we can wrap this up and he can get to building. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Any other members of the public?
Good evening. My name is Elaine Cummings, and I just wanted to express my support for this project. I think Eric and his team have done a lovely job with materials, landscaping, and so I hope to see it approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Bert Cummings. What she said.
We love brevity. Okay. Anybody else here in the chamber? Anybody online? Okay. I can't see him. Maybe you could switch over my screen.
We have Gail Lehman first.
Okay, Gail, would you like to speak to us?
Yeah. Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Gail. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gail Lehman, and I will admit to have been a former planning commissioner for almost 7 years. So it's nice to see the excellence that Eric has put forward for all of us. And I'm so enthused about watching the construction of these houses and seeing how anyone who has ever had any objection to anything in a contemporary vein will be won over by the beauty of this and the elegance of the landscaping, which is so natural and so lovely. Eric, you really rang all the bells on this one, and I'm just happy to support it. So thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Cindy Lloyd, would you like to make your comments?
Thank you very much, Chairman LePage, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Cindy Lloyd. I will preface this by saying that I am a lifelong resident of Carmel, having been born here 83 years ago. And my dad was a builder in Carmel, and he did 4 houses all together on Torrey Street between 8th and 9th. Eric has designed a most beautiful and sensitive series of 3 houses on a cascading site that have been linked together with beautiful landscaping. I can't think of anything better in terms of a new project in Carmel of this kind. And I can only echo what Thomas Hood and Kent Seavey said. They said it better than I, but congratulations, Eric. I certainly hope your project is approved today, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Ian Martin, would you like to speak to us?
Good evening, commissioners. I'm delighted that so many people are speaking up in favor of Eric's beautiful homes here. They are truly wonderful, and most importantly, they also blend very well with the natural forested setting. And I wish more new homes in Carmel-by-the-Sea did. Of course, it's one of the most important things that we consider in our community is how well houses blend with the forest. And Eric has done an exemplary job of having these houses blend well with the forest. And part of that, I believe, has to do with his decision to have a living roof. And I think that that's something that should be encouraged It further makes the houses blend in more naturalistically, more naturally, that is, with the forest context. And as for copper versus iron, copper is heavily regulated by our municipality in California in general because because copper runoff in rainwater is poisonous to marine life. It's completely different from iron. Iron is ubiquitous, and of course, steel is made from iron. Iron's ubiquitous in soil, and already, so having these core 10 steel elements, which I think are going to be a beautiful accent, isn't going to change or affect anything at all. We regulate copper because of its toxicity. We have no such regulations for iron. Anyway, all of that said, these are 3 beautiful, sensitive homes, and they are going to be a credit to our village and its architectural record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And David Girolamo? You need to unmute yourself, David. There you go. Is your mic on, David? David, I'm going to let you work out your technical problems, and I'm going to take the next speaker, Don Goodhue. And you need to unmute yourself, Don. Where's that unmute button? It's in the lower. I think it's in the lower left-hand corner there, if you can't find that on your screen. Okay, you're unmuted.
I'm sorry.
There you go, Don. We can hear you.
Okay. This grouping has diverse compatible designs and features a particularly noteworthy landscaping treatment that achieves a continuous, harmonious streetscape. Eric has worked with the neighbors to assuage their concerns. The roof of the northernmost house has been lowered 6 feet, enhancing the viewscape of 3 neighbors. This model design warrants your full support and approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Okay, I think David left us. So that's all. I think that concludes the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to close the public. Eric, did you want to make some follow-up comments? You said you were asked for a little time.
If there's any questions there.
Yeah. Okay. So you're satisfied with your presentation. All right. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to close the public comments. Open up to the commissioners. Commissioner Allen, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I am ready to go ahead and approve the 4 proposed resolutions.
Okay. Well, before we do that, I'm going to give everybody a chance to comment. So, Commissioner Locke, would you have any comments?
I just want to say that I'm really excited that this project has finally gotten to this point. It's a beautiful project, and I can't wait to see the finished product on it. The narrative is fantastic. And Eric, I hope that you will make sure that future owners of these homes have the opportunity to have it somewhere that they will always be able to find it, because it really does tell a great story. So I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate the landscape narrative as well, because it really pulls it all together and makes it a great story. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'm 100% behind it.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Not much to add to these comments. I think we spend most of our time talking about the Hapuna project because of some, reservations of the community. But we have to, also spend some time talking about the other 2 projects, the Kalea and Ahana. I think they're unique houses in a way because they're the mass is distributed is in two pieces. You have this living area, and then you have kind of a hallway or a set of service rooms connecting to the back end where you have the bedrooms. I think that's a very unique design that allows you to expose the entire house to the greenery around it, and also allows these magnificent trees to stay alive and continue to be part of the forest. In too many projects, we end up removing some trees and then asking the owners to plant trees as a compensation, and usually we end up with a row of trees in the front and a couple of trees in the back, but nothing in the middle, so it doesn't really feel like a forest anymore. In this particular case, the trees are really randomly distributed across the three properties, the three lots, and it really looks like these houses are nested in the forest, rather than we build three houses and then we do some landscaping around them. So that's really, I think, the biggest achievement of this project, and I think it's a great contribution to the forest character of the village of Carmel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Commissioner Alborn?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with all of my fellow commissioners, and I am grateful for the explanation about the living roofs. They seem to be designed state-of-the-art, and hopefully those project plans might be available to future designers who might be wanting to do something similar in town. And I am also pleased to learn a little bit about the steel that will be used in the gardens. We are such a sensitive, environmentally sensitive area, so close to the coast, so I think it's always important to pay attention to those things. This project will not only enhance the city, but I think is going to have a profound effect on all of the lucky people that have the opportunity to live in these homes. So thank you. I look forward to supporting this in a few moments.
This has been quite a project, quite a journey. You know, and Eric and his team are so talented, and I love the landscaping. Almost like the landscaping as much as the houses. And the two just, I mean, they go together. They really, I think the word I heard from Kent was harmony, or one of the speakers said harmony, and I think that's kind of the theme here that I think of, harmony. But the other thing I think about is that I think that even though Eric's team and Eric have all this talent they bring to this, I'm sure this really has taken them kind of on a journey. So I'm sure you're in a much different place now than you were when you started this. And I think going forward, you know, this project's going to be part of the legacy of Carmel. It has a connection. We've talked about the sisters and all these others, and this is going to be, you know, part of that legacy. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes and what happens with it, you know. I don't think we really know what it is, but I think I mean, the harmony's there, and that can only be a good thing. So that's all I have to say about it. I'm just wondering how we're going to do this motion thing. You got me confused here, Jake. Have you got a place where I can see it all in one place, or?
I do. We're gonna keep it very simple and straightforward. You can, oh man, start the beginning. You can just read it as presented on screen, and that works.
So we can make one motion for these, or we have to do separate?
It has to be 4 motions.
We're going to do 4 separate motions. That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. Well, just for ease here, I'm gonna make the motions, and then who wants to accept. So the first motion is going to be the motion to adopt a resolution designated as attachment 1 to the staff report. This is the lot line adjustment. Now, it doesn't say which lot line though, does it?
There'll be 2 lot line adjustments. It's kind of shifting.
So this takes care of all the lot lines. Okay,
yes.
We're not going specific lot. All right. So this is a motion to accept the lot line adjustment for the 3 pieces of property.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetko?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes. Motion is carried. Okay. The second motion I will make will be to adopt the resolution designated as attachment 2 to the staff report. This is for DS 24207, named Hapuna.
I can second that.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetko?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. The third motion I'll make is a motion to adopt resolution designated as attachment 3 to the staff report. This is Design Study 24208, Kailea.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allborn?
Yes?
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. The last motion will be motion to adopt resolution designated as attachment 4 to the staff report. This is DA 24209, Ahana.
Chair, I believe we have to adjust that to be DS 24209.
Did I say the wrong one?
I had a typo there.
You put an error there? Yeah, I thought that was, I was wondering.
On me, that's on me.
Oh, man, we were going so smoothly.
We were really moving. Yeah, it should be a DS.
DS, yeah.
DS
And I'll second that.
24209, Ahana. Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, she's second.
Okay, thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So we'll be at the site in 1 year.
I just want to comment that it's just so nice to have an architect come before us that actually has passion and vision and inspiration for a project, because I feel like that doesn't happen all the time, and so thank you, Eric.
All right, thank you all. Okay, we had a lot of discussion tonight about a lot of different topics, and I appreciate everybody's input and all the audience. There was a lot of really great comments. So the director's report is the next thing on our agenda.
I do have one thing to report.
Do you have anything to report?
Yes, we are scheduled to take the ordinance to adopt the fire hazard maps provided by the state marshal in the June regular meeting for City Council. So that'll be the first reading, or I believe it's introduction, waive reading, and then we'll have a second reading prior to the July 8th due date.
Okay. So this is the. So how does the fire map affect the permit process or the review process? I mean, just briefly. I don't expect you to go into details.
It has newer areas that are now designated very high, and moderate.
So it expands that high fire area.
But we're not. We are adopting what the minimum legally required map from the state. We're not expanding any boundaries.
And so when you designate an area as a certain fire risk, that triggers certain requirements?
For new construction.
For new construction primarily?
Right.
Okay.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
You just said the minimally expansive. So the proposed fire maps that I saw took the super high fire areas all the way to Ocean Avenue, from the north almost to Ocean Avenue. Is that the maps that you're talking about?
It's the map provided by the state fire marshal.
Right. So is that the minimal one then?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. You cannot be. You could be more restrictive, but you cannot be more lenient.
Wow. Okay.
Minimum standard.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
I have a question also about that, and that's going to impact landscaping.
Yes.
Yes?
It's
and is that going to happen at this level, or is that going to happen at the building level?
It should be taken into account as part of the planning process, because it could also impact site coverage.
Well, because like wood chips, for instance, like the wood chip path next to a structure.
Not in very high. That would not be approvable.
Did City Council consider an urgency ordinance around that for gravel and roofs and?
Yeah, it was an option, but the direction staff received was to create a working group to determine the best way to move forward that would be more restrictive than what we're adopting now.
And so when will the working group be coming back with their recommendations?
A group has not been yet created, but I can give you all an update once we have that information.
Because I think that's that's important.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Okay, I just want to, I want to remind you that we have a
I'm sorry,
next
Chair
Tuesday.
LePage.
So,
Sorry, we have
one more thing, good.
one more. So 1 year ago, or 1 year from May 1st, was Mr. Jacobs' first day, so it's his 1 year anniversary.
well, I've enjoyed working with Jake. I think he's a great addition. Glad to have you here. All right, thank you. We are adjourned. Let's get out of here. I told my wife 8 o'clock. I was right. I told my wife 8 o'clock. Call. Well, not that I get anything for that, but.